Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
A guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin to lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name. Well, folks, we've arrived. Welcome back to PSGL. Can you believe it? This wasn't in the plan. It was never on the copybook, but it is here. We have returned. Season 35/36. And PCF1 is back on your screens yet again in what has been a turbulent time in the world of sim racing and esports, certainly in the world of Formula 1 as well. But nevertheless, PSGL is here to pick up the ball that was dropped, and we're going to be bringing you all the action. My name is, of course, George Morgan, back in the commentary box and returning to the F1 broadcast. Once again, it's the one, the only. He's not just a Field, he's Dan Field. Dan, tell us all about it.
Excited to be back here, George. Honestly, it's been so long. I think since end of 2022 was the last time I was full-time in F1. So excited to get into this new season. Very much looking forward to getting into it. And of course, we've got that surprise twist coming our way.
Yeah, it is. I've got to say, fabulous night tonight on many levels. Mainly because the grid is stacked. First of all, let's go through the lineup because it is absolutely outrageous this season. This is the full list of drivers and teams. You might as well take a look at this. This is essentially the F1 esports grid. Brendan Lee and Thomas Ronhaar lines up for Alfa Romeo, of course now known as Sauber, or should we say Stake F1. Of course, no gambling here at PSGL. Jed Norgrove and Yoni Tormler line up for the AlphaTauri team. Luke Smith and Ruben Pedreño at Alpine, with Fabrizio Donoso and Simon Weigang at Aston Martin. We've got Barry Burremand and Nicholas Longay at Ferrari. Alfie Butcher and Ulas Ozildirim at Haas. We've got Otis Lawrence, Wilson Hughes at McLaren. Mercedes line up with Jarno Opmeer, looking to become yet another time champion. Of course, has already taken 4 championships and is our reigning champion as well in PSGL in the PC tier. Of course, you can count him as a 5-time world champion if you include his PS championship victory as well. But you'd be looking to make it 5 on the PC platform, you would imagine. Jake Benham marking a return as well alongside him as well. Frederick Rasmussen, and I've got to say, one of the most controversial ones, Danny Berejnay. Of course, many of you will know him as the Mercedes driver alongside Jarno and Jake. He lines up at a Red Bull. That's only because there isn't enough Mercedes seats going around, and Berejnay looking for a full-time seat. So he lines up alongside Freddie Rasmussen. Alvaro Carreton and Ishmael Fassi line up together. Of course, Ishmael Fassi, one of the feel-good stories of the opening round, who has been absolutely stellar at F1 Esports, certainly in Event 1, where all the pressure was mounted on him heading into the LAN events. And of course, we do have a very high plethora of reserves as well lined up for the season, and we will of course go through the grid for today's race, because whilst this is the confirmed season grid, not all of those regular drivers are here tonight, but nonetheless great to have them all confirmed. Now we can confirm the track has been announced for tonight as well, and we're heading to Portimao here, Danfield. We weren't sure because they were stuck on Bahrain for quite some time, but we are doing mystery tracks here at PSGL, so none of the drivers can prepare for each round, shall we say, like they would normally do. But tonight we're off to Portimao.
I mean, Portimao, it is like a roller coaster driving around there. One of my favourite tracks, but it is very difficult to get right. I'm thinking in, what was it, Samsung Corner, I think, in the second sector. So difficult to get absolutely right. And with no prep, I think these drivers, some of them might struggle today. So we'll have to wait and see who comes out on top in this very, there's a lot of question marks in the air. I think that's just the sort of the essence of this to-be-announced sort of track style, this mystery circuit, if you want to put it that way. And I'm so excited to get in. I just want to get in now.
Well, I mean, this is going to really separate the men from the boys, you know, when it comes down to pure brilliance as well. Interesting black and white view we've got here of you, Danfield, at this point. He's gone full noir here at this stage. This isn't the 60s, folks. Do not adjust your television sets. This is PSGL still. Do not go away. But yes, we are back. We're heading to Portimao. Fantastic track. I was very fortunate to actually commentate on the real thing at the start of which I can say last year now. Of course, 2023 is done and dusted. In the International GT Open Championship. And let me just say, folks, it's as grandiose in real life as it is in the gaming sense as well. Plenty of overtaking spots, which very much marry up with what you get in the real context of racing as well. We'll put the drivers to the test. It is a slalom circuit, a huge test for everybody who are taking part here this evening. And bear in mind, none of these drivers have had the opportunity to practice, as we alluded to earlier on. So therefore, we're going to see, I would argue, probably the most talented of drivers, should we say the most naturally talented driver, take the big results here, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I said on my, I made a tweet the other day saying that this is possibly the best league racing grid I've ever commentated on, and I'm looking at all of these names and I'm thinking any one of these guys can come out on top. This is just such an exciting grid that we've got here this evening. We've got all 20 drivers in the lobby. They've been given the word to ready up, and we're about to head into qualifying. George, I just don't know who to look at the most.
Yeah, just want to point out as well, folks, I know there's been a lot of quizzes, a lot of queries as to who is going to be, or whether Lucas is going to be taking part in the championship this year. I can confirm he will be taking part this year. May not have been on the promo, but he did come out and make a statement fairly recently to say that whilst his name wasn't necessarily down as a regular for McLaren, he will be making sporadic appearances. And obviously we know that Lucas is tied up with not just what he does on the sim, but also with stuff that he has done in real life as well. He's been so successful in GB4 testing, and also has taken a podium in GB4 as well. Not to mention victories in the Race of Champions as well against Valtteri Bottas and Sebastian Vettel, which is absolutely outrageous. So the fact now that we're going to see him hopefully eventually in this series is going to be fantastic, and looking to become champion again, because remember, there's only 3 different champions in PSGL history. Jarno has obviously taken 4 championships. He's the only driver to have more than 1 PSGL championship in the PC platform, but you've got to factor in that you've got Lucas Blakely and Barry Burmand, of course, who are also former champions, both of which, though, aren't here tonight.
Yeah, very unfortunate to see that Barry Burman not taking part this evening. He is being replaced, though, by an up-and-coming star in the F1 esports scene of Istvan Pukki, of course, a part of that Ferrari esports team. Himself and Nicholas Longa are going to be working very well together, and normally when you see all 3 of those drivers, they are always, they're following the same strategy, always near each other on circuit, working together, making their way up to the front. I think we're going to see much the same of that, minus Barry Burman, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, folks, that we have got dry conditions, at least for now, at Portimao, though my telemetry is telling me storm in 60 minutes, but it is only a 17-minute and 50-odd qualifying session at this stage, so we haven't really got a lot to worry about, but let's take you through that full grid order for tonight, because you guys will be able to see it now in all its grandeur here at this stage. Shanaka Clay marking a return. Now, a lot of controversy going around at the moment, Danfield, because we saw Shanaka Clay's confirmed statement that he would not be taking part in F1 esports going forward with Williams as such, but he's here as a Williams reserve.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit confusing to me, but it's good to see that Shanaka Clay is still able to take part here this evening. Of course, no Ismail Fassi, and like the Ferrari drivers himself and Alvaro Carreton, and that Williams pairing is really strong, and I think it's got to have that Spanish connection there. Shanaka Clay and Alvaro, of course, they have had that connection as well and have worked really well together in the past, so I don't think there's going to be any bad tensions between the pair of them. Just hope they can just run their races and have a good one this evening. Yeah,
already activity at Red Bull as well, as we now see, of course, Otis Lawrence coming out onto the track too. Naturally, one of the greatest and up-and-coming young talents, and you'll never see Otis Lawrence on an F1 esports grid just due to mere age at this point. But it's great to see him contest with the best here, because he has proven time and time again that he is sensational and he has the raw ability and talent. Arguably one of the brightest young talents to come out of the game in recent seasons, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Otis Lawrence, he is certainly good enough to be here and compete with these established esports champions on this grid here in PSGL. And it's great to see that Otis Lawrence is able to really keep up with these guys at such a young age. And when the time is right, when he, of course, turns 16 years old, he will be able to partake in F1 esports. And we're all going to be there supporting him because Otis Lawrence is certainly one for the future, George.
He is, and making his way around the final few corners now. They do have the inward slope that takes them through towards turn 1 off the back of the main straight. And the McLaren is going to be the first to take to the circuit. First of all, he's got this little downward section. Was a little bit twisted heading through the second to last corner as he now makes his way down towards the start-finish line and will commence his flying lap. What has Otis got for us? Remember, we said Otis is Gotis back at Zandvoort last season. He certainly was sensational and has brought many a grandiose overtake, not to mention a fantastic move, fabulous victories in the top echelons of racing, and now looking to come back here in PCF1 to deliver his almighty best yet again. And also McLaren that have tasted so much success in F1 esports lately. We'll have to see whether that can drive him onwards against top-tier competition. I will say this, though, the rear light flashing on the car, this certainly isn't a fast run at this stage, but of course, with the intermediate tyres on the car, we won't be seeing anything necessarily sharp at this point. Purple in the first sector, though, for Otis, as expected, just due to the mere fact that he will be running the first time onto the clock. And immediately that time has been taken away by Freddie Rasmussen, though Rasmussen not wasting any time. He's opting for the medium tyres in this initial stint here, Dan.
Very interesting decision there from Freddie Rasmussen to go onto the set of the mediums. This is a tyre that we typically see being used prominently throughout the entire race. And so to see it this early in qualifying in Q1 where, he's essentially throwing this set away. He's not on a push lap or anything. And once everyone comes out for a set of the softs, his time will be knocked right down to the bottom. So it's a little bit of an interesting move here from Freddie Rasmussen as Otis Lawrence comes across the line. A 19.6 to open up the session. But yeah, Freddie, it's a very interesting call, but George, I'm sure he knows a lot more than you and I. He's, of course, one of the most established, one of the most well-known esports drivers. He heads now through the final corner of turn number 15 to come across the line. We'll see what he does. It's going to be a 1 minute 17.1 for the Finn. We'll see how his session pans out.
Yeah. Tremendous run indeed for Freddie Rasmussen, the Great Dane. Now goes to the top, and now we have Ruben Pedreño, who occupies the soft tyres, certainly not wasting any time himself, has made his F1 esports debut this season. Freddie Rasmussen, though, a stellar F1 esports record. You allude to his experience, 4 times consecutively a runner-up in F1 esports competition. Pedreño, though, not able to topple Rasmussen for the top time, despite Rasmussen adopting the medium tyres. Extraordinary.
I think Ruben Pedreño must have made a mistake somewhere along that lap. Apologies, I called Freddie Rasmussen a Finn. I think I was getting him mixed up with his former Red Bull teammate, Johnny Tormola, of course. Yeah. I do apologise there, Freddie, if you're listening to us.
Fabulous scenes indeed. Alfie Butcher, another driver that's fresh in the world of F1 esports, though not to top-tier competition because, of course, we've seen him here at PSGL in the past. But not only that, dominant in F1 esports challenges. He took the crown as well. And his teammate and compadre, Ulas Ajildren, the Turk, he himself as well impressing in challenges and has also taken part in ESL R1. And very familiar with LAN event competition as well. I can tell you that Danny Berejnay has gone purple in the first sector, so immediately taking the purple first sector time. A little bit of a twisting motion, though, from Alfie Butcher. He comes under a little bit of pressure as he ventures through the final couple of corners, but he's going to head straight to the pit lane. No doubt he's going to look to put on a set of soft tyres. As we now see Berejnay head down the hill now. He's going to immediately send it to the top once again. Try and hook it around this 90-degree left-hander that is also testing and trying as he heads out of Sagre. And then very shortly, he's going to make his way down towards the Gulp curve as well. Out of turn 13, 14. Turn 15 coming up next. What can Berejnay utilise here out of the Red Bull? Of course, we've never seen him drive this car before historically. Now making his way up towards the line. Goes fastest now with a 1:16.444. Of course, early days here, Dan, but immediately setting the pace. And well clear of Freddie Rasmussen.
Yeah, 2 Red Bulls at the minute, 1 and 2. It is very weird to see Danny Berejnay in that Red Bull car, but it's a very promising start for him in this session. Definitely not a perfect lap, especially in that 3rd sector, turn number 13. He got on the curb a little bit on entry to the corner and was a little bit hazy through there. So I think Danny Berejnay a lot of time to find in that lap, and I'm just waiting for around about the 10-minute mark, George, is when we start to see times that they come out on the softs.
Yeah, Alvaro Carreton, very messy, heading through the 1st sector, is now making his way down the hill. And we'll head towards Tora Vip now. He's got Otis Lawrence currently ahead of him as well as our man at the very top, Danny Berejnay, on his cool-down lap. Otis Lawrence, incidentally, also on a slow run as well. So Carreton's got to try and dodge and weave through the traffic as he ventures up through Samsung at turn 8. Oh. Craig Jones at turn 9 then as he makes his way over the crest. And I think that did cost him, in fact. Yeah. Meeting Otis where he did has unfortunately scuppered his flying lap.
Got an invalidation through turn number 8 of Samsung corner. I think he was just a little bit too wide on the exit of the corner, so unfortunately that lap is gone down the bin for Alvaro Carreton. We'll see if he's able to get back into the pits. He's got 10.5 minutes left in this session, so he should be all right to get another time on the board. But losing a set of softs this early in qualifying, it's definitely going to put on his mind, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Teammate Shanaka Clay, who, as we said before, announced his... basically announced an update saying that he's no longer part of the Williams esports outfit, which was a bit of a shock to many, considering that, and a shock to him, he came out and declared that he was in Williams esports plans for the upcoming F1 Esports Championship, but things were changed almost abruptly with obviously the decisions being made to continue with Alvaro Carreton. No surprises there, because Carreton has been part of the fold at Williams now for quite some time. Very much a one-man team is... Carreton, in a sense that he has not drifted anywhere else since he started in F1 Esports. As we now see Shanaka Clay come up towards the line now, and he goes to the top as well, a 1:16.381, and obviously the track now coming into temperature as we see more and more cars make their way around it. Otis Lawrence, though, I will say this, has just gone purple in the 1st sector and is an almighty over 0.8 of a second up here at this point. So looking good here for the youngster as he now makes his way through this next right-hander out of Samsung now to turn 8. He'll then make his way up towards Craig Jones at turn 9. Up the hill and immediately through a very blind right-hander. You can see cutting through to the inside, a Mercedes right in front of him as well. Jana Watmere also on, sorry, not a Mercedes, a Haas. Jana Watmere also out on the lap though, nonetheless. Wilson Hughes going fastest. So that gives confidence to Otis Lawrence, knowing that another McLaren is now up at the top. And with Lawrence currently holding on to a purple 1st sector and a personal improvement in sector 2. This is looking good as Danny Berejnay now goes faster with a 1:16.203. 8 minutes and 45 to go now, and here comes Lawrence to the top with a 1:16.043. 2 tenths near enough, 1.5 tenths at least clear of Danny Berejnay in second, and he's laid down the baton as Otis Lawrence.
Very promising stuff there from Otis Lawrence. A fantastic lap to get his qualifying session underway. McLaren looking to be in strong stead at the minute. Simon Weigang is about to come across the line now. We'll see what he's able to do in the Aston Martin. A disappointing 17.6 from him. But George, now as everyone is beginning their outlaps and actually coming to the end of their outlaps to begin their first hot laps on a set of the softs, we've got a few guys already on runs at the minute. The name I'm watching, Alfie Butcher in Sector 2.
Yeah, and his teammate as well is making his way around the track. Alfie Butcher, though, slightly more ahead on this lap. So Haas are going to be crossing the line in tandem very shortly. Unfortunately, though, for Alfie Butcher, the 1st sector doesn't look very appealing. A 22.7. Although saying that again, my telemetry's just updated. It's a 21.8, so it's a personal improvement in the 1st sector. So as you'd expect, though, clearly, as he has not necessarily nestled in a time together just yet. It's not purple though, so it will not disturb Otis Lawrence's 1st sector, but if he can marshal in a brilliant final sector, this could be huge here for Alfie Butcher as he now makes his way up towards the line. Let's see what he's going to manage to lay down. 3rd fastest, very respectable, though near enough 2.5 tenths the difference between he and Otis Lawrence right at the very top. We got Ulas Yildirim, his teammate, as well, about to cross the line as well. He goes 4th fastest, and I did mention to you prior to going on air, Dan, that they were the ones to watch at Haas, though as I say that, Thomas Ronha, purple in the 1st sector, but he's just had it stolen by the current, or should I say former 2-time champion Brendan Lee.
Yeah, this Alfa Romeo lineup, as well as that Haas, really strong at the minute. Thomas Ronhaar, he silenced a lot of people in F1 esports, and it's great to see that he's finally been able to prove on land that he is legit and he is here to stay. As Nicolas Longue's come across the line at 16.3, I believe. That's Freddie Rasmussen now into second position at the minute. No one able to topple over Otis Lawrence at the moment. Still a few more guys coming across the line. I think Jake Benham is up next. Jarno Opmeer's teammate's gone third. Disappointing P10 for Jake at the moment. Lots of times coming out now.
Yeah, they certainly are. Thomas Ronhaar purple in the second sector again, and his first sector time was brilliant. Only Brendan Lee could stop him, as now we see Ronhaar up towards the line. A 1:15.658. Unbelievable! Nearly 4/10 quicker than his own teammate Brendan Lee, who comes across the line. Outrageous from Thomas Ronhaar. He is gone right to the very top. Event 1 victor in F1 esports this season, and has laid down an almighty foundation here with just under 6 minutes still to go.
Thomas Ronhaar has silenced all the critics, and he has rose above them, and he keeps performing at this incredibly high level. And it's great to see now, George, that he's finally getting the recognition that he deserves. I'm looking at the live chat, and they're beaming at the minute. And of course, a few weeks ago, it had been a lot different to what we saw previously. So it's great to see Thomas Ronhaar finally is able to prove that he is one of the very best. And of course, with a disappointing 8th last season, I believe, in PSGL, he is going to want to improve on that. And I think, George, we could see a championship contender in the making.
Yeah, Jarno Opmeer going 5th fastest as well, laying down a 1:16.186. Now, it's not a bad place to be for Jarno, because remember, we are in elimination procedure for qualifying. So obviously the bottom 5 will be eliminated. So the ones to be concerned right now are Fabrizio Donoso, Simon Weigang, 2 at Aston Martin. That obviously needs something to happen for them. Jed Norgrove as well, Luke Smith, Alvaro Caraton, the only driver yet to secure a time. And if you look at right at the very bottom, Luke Smith and Jed Norgrove obviously haven't, should we set times that are, necessarily ample, because they were done on intermediate tyres. So, they need to try and figure something out very quickly at this point.
And George, one name I want to bring attention to is Danny Bergesnay, as Alvaro Caraton's actually just come across the line to go into P5. But Danny Bergesnay, that lap that's put him into... Wow, Clay as well, into P3. Wow, didn't even see him there.
Talk about answering back your critics. That is a great time for Shanaka Clay to go 3rd fastest ahead of Otis Lawrence. Absolutely stellar. And a great showing from the Williams driver as well, former Williams driver at this stage, but higher than Alvaro Caraton. Do you think he's trying to send a message, Dan?
It would be nice if he was, but I think he's just here to run his race, have a good time in that Williams. It's a car that he is very familiar with, of course, being a part of this team for the last, I want to say, 2 seasons at this point. Thomas Ronhaar's retired in the pit lane, firmly safe into the next session with that time. And yeah, I mean, we got now 3.5 minutes left to go. The 5 drivers in danger. Joni Tormala, Fabrizio Donoso, Simon Weigang, Jed Norgrove, and Luke Smith. Both AlphaTauris, both Aston Martins, and an Alpine. And the other Alpine, Ruben Pedreño, not exactly safe at the moment. So all 3 of those teams, they're going to be working together in these calls, trying to get someone out of this bottom 5.
Yeah, they certainly will do. Caraton, though, managing, as we said before, remember, he was right at the bottom, no time set. He has managed to go P6. We obviously alluded to Shanaka Clay managing to move himself into 3rd. So that's 2 Williams drivers in the top 10, 2 of them in the top 6. Luke Smith now at the very bottom has only managed to muster in a 1:19.7 at this point. Now, he's going to have to come out fairly quickly, because, of course, we're coming down now to the final 2 minutes and 50. Plenty of cars now out on outlaps, and as I'm looking at it, it's Ruben Pedreño who is going to be the first to cross the line to commence his final run. He's just making his way through turn 7 and turn 8. He needs a major play here as well, Dan, because he's right on the bubble here of elimination. 15th place. It will grant him safety into Q2, but it's all to play for here with only a small matter of 1.5 minutes, or should I say 2.5 minutes remaining.
It's not a big improvement that Ruben Pedreño needs to really secure himself in the next session. You can see he's on a 16.4 at the minute, and then a whole flurry of cars ahead of him on a 16.3. 14th, 9th down to 14th position. So what's that, 6 drivers, I believe that is, who are all on a 16.3. Ruben Pedreño needs to find a little over a 10th, maybe 0.2 of a second to potentially get himself into the next session. But I think a lot of these guys at the bottom of the order are going to be worried at the fact that Brendan Lee see Otis Lawrence and Freddie Rasmussen all out on circuit when, George, I'd assume that they'd be safe, but seems like that is not the case as Ruben Pedreño is getting his lap now underway.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, here we go. Ruben Pedreño, the first to cross the line. He is not alone, though. Brendan Lee is still persevering, and he remains out as well, so maybe looking to perhaps topple his own teammate here, a 1:15. Now, what I will say is that Alfa Romeo have the only two cars that occupy times in the 1:15s, which is sensational, quite frankly. Shanaka Clay still in third. Otis Lawrence's time has lasted the distance, at least for now. He's also out on an outlap, still doesn't feel secure, so that goes to show really how much still remains on a lap. And I'd imagine plenty of them have looked at Thomas Ronhaar's lap and have said, well, there's definitely something more to give, as we now see Pedreño make his way up the hill out of Samsung at turn 8. He now makes his way over the crest and down the hill through the left-hand side now. 90-degree left coming up as well very shortly. He's first of all got to make his way through the blind corner, heading out of Portimao turn 10. And then you've got turn 13 out of turn 12, as well as he has to dodge and weave past the Aston Martin that currently lies there as well. Simon Weigang on an outlap at this stage. Now Pedreño looks to get us kicked off here with the first, should we say, time to nestle in on the board. I can tell you that Otis Lawrence has gone purple in the first sector as well, so let's not count him out just yet. Could yet topple Thomas Ronhaar's time, another 1:15 to bring to the table. Pedreño now into the top 10. That's not a bad time at all here, Dan.
It's a good lap there from Ruben, but I don't know if that's going to be safe. A lot of guys out on circuit at the minute. Nicolas Longuet's found himself now into P4 with a 16.0. A whole host of cars now in that third sector. We'll see if Ruben Pedreño on that time is going to be safe here.
Yeah, well, here comes Otis Lawrence, purple, remember, in sector 1. Can he do it again here? Can he marshal a top time once again here in qualifying? Goes second fastest, Otis Lawrence. Jarno Opmeer going third fastest too. So the major players now starting to come into the fold. Plenty of other cars, though, still to cross the line as we have the Alpine of Luke Smith, who last set a 1:19.769. Needs this for safety to try and burst into the top 15 to secure safety into Q2. He does, goes fifth fastest and relegates Alfie Butcher as well, who's in the pits. That means he's out. Jake Benham, of course, currently occupying P17. Needs to find something here, Dan, to stay in qualifying.
Jake Benham at the minute, he is hanging on by a thread. A few more cars coming across the line. We got one of the Aston Martins up ahead, but Jake Benham, certainly the driver that sticks out the most in this drop zone to me. He's about to come to the end of the second sector. What is it, his improvement? He's finding almost 0.2 of a second. It's looking good for Jake Benham, now heading through into the final sector. Alfie Butcher eliminated. Simon Weigang not able to get out of that bottom 5. A few more drivers, Fabrizio Donoso and Jake Benham, both of them in the drop zone now, coming through the final few corners. It's going to be Fabi, then Jake. Will any of these guys be able to get out of this session? Fabrizio Donoso comes into the pit lane. Jake Benham secures himself into the next session. 2,000s quicker than Danny Bergenay, and he goes P8.
Yeah, and Jed Norgrove now moved down to 16th. Unfortunately for Jed Norgrove, invalidated his flying run in Sector 1 on that final run, so he will not be making it through into Q2. So we've lost Joni Tormela, Fabrizio Donoso, Simon Weigang. Disaster for Aston Martin. Alfie Butcher out. That's a major shock as well, considering the talent that he is. And Jed Norgrove, of course, out after that mistake in that first sector. And he will not be partaking in the next session. And Wilson Hughes barely surviving, but you've got to give credit to McLaren. 2 cars now going through. Otis Lawrence putting up a very good display. And just look at how much the times have depleted as well. The top 9 now in the 1:15s, but no one could beat Thomas Ronhaar. Otis Lawrence, though, credit to him, got close. He got to nearly within 1/10 of a second.
Incredible stuff there from Thomas Ronhaar and Otis Lawrence, who I think, George, are spearheading this next generation movement that we're seeing in league racing. Of course, you've still got the likes of Freddie Rasmussen, Jarno Opmeer and Brendan Lee all contesting in that top 5, but Thomas Ronhaar, Otis Lawrence, all of these young guys now coming into the fold and looking to make waves, and I think the pair of them at the minute with their 15.6 and 15.7s, it is looking good for them today.
Yeah, of course, Thomas Ronhaar made his name in, well, should we say the Xbox platforms, mainly in the WR League, and has now moved onwards into PC competition. Of course, was in contest for the title when the same season that Barry Burraman took it, and that was decided in the stewards room post-final race. A lot of dramas. Myself and Jack Canan had to come out the following day after the race to actually reiterate what the stewards had decided, but Thomas Ronhaar this time going to the top and basically carries on from where he left off in Event 1 in F1 Esports, has taken the top spot here in Q1 with Otis Lawrence in second, Freddie Rasmussen back again in third with Jarno Opmeer in fourth, Brendan Lee in fifth, makes it a double act in the top five for Alfa Romeo. We then have Luke Smith in sixth, Istvan Pukki in seventh, Jake Benham further down in eighth, Danny Berejnay ninth, Shanaka Clay 10th, Nicholas Longay lines up in 11th so far with Ulas Yildirim in 12th, Alvaro Caraton 13th, Pedreño in 14th, we've got Wilson Hughes 15th, who just managed to stay in. Just look at the gaps. So we're going to lose, though. Jed Norgrove, Alfie Butcher, Simon Weigang, Fabrizio Donoso, and Yoni Tormala from the session. So some major dramas already as we've just concluded action here in Q1. And I think, obviously, as we've expected, I know Thomas Ronhaar has utterly brought his best to the table, but you know, again, Otis Lawrence making a name for himself here. Dan proving again that despite his youthful age, he is not intimidated by the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Q2 about to get underway. I can already see, I think, George, we might have already had our first penalty of the season. Simon Weigang has left the lobby, and Louis Dupont is all over him like a rash in the PSGL F1 chat.
Oh, so, dear.
Simon... I think the penalty.
Way to make enemies, Simon. Brilliant. I mean, listen. We've come to expect this from time to time from Simon. It's generally what happens when it's concerning him. But we are back here in Q2. Fear not. Shanaka Clay is right at the very top and making his way around the track as well. Great to see him back as well. And given the hardships that he has suffered, Dan, obviously with the dispatch now from Williams, obviously it's, like you said, a bit peculiar to see him driving a Williams here tonight. But you know, to be back in action here in Q2 after a stellar Q1 where he popped himself in the top three after that initial run on the slick tyres, I think he can take a lot of solace from that. You know, naturally, he's got to be on the shopping list for various teams, has he not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Shanaka Clay, especially in qualifying, really is a big talent, and I definitely think we could expect to see him into the final parts of qualifying, of course, into Q3, and he is certainly a very hard-working driver. He's been a part of the scene for a long time, very well respected amongst all of the other drivers, and he's always been able to keep his head. You know, we've had these bust-ups in league racing before of big incidences and drivers, you know, dirty racing, and Shanaka Clay's never really been a part of that, so I definitely think he is one to look out for if you know, you're in the market for one of these esports teams are in the market for a new driver who's solid, consistent and hard working. Shanaka Clay has got to be at the top of their shortlist. Yeah,
of course, he's had his trials, he's had his tribulations, but he's back here in PSGL competition. And now making his way across the line. 5-place grid penalty for Otis Lawrence after a collision with Brendan Lee. That will be negated, though, when we have the lobby restart post-qualifying, as we now see. Now Shanaka Clay make his way around turn 1. Turn 2 coming up next, and he'll make his way up the hill briefly before then descending, heading down towards the hairpin Tora Vip. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead, though, because there is an Alpine of Ruben Pedreño currently on an outlap as well. Making his way down through towards the next left now, keeping it tight to the inside and then straight back onto the throttle immediately. Shanaka Clay now managing to muster in a 21.678 in the first sector, but it's not the fastest time we've seen. Jarno Opmeer immediately going purple in sector 1 with a 21.635, but that's just been stolen by Brendan Lee, who I must say, we look at the builds of the game that have come out in recent years, I would argue that the build of this game is very much closer to where it was back in the era of 2018. Certainly closer than it was last season, where the handling model was scrutinised a little bit, but nevertheless the drivers have learned to work with it. I will say this, though, Thomas Ronhaar has just taken the purple first sector away from his own teammate here as well. So Shanaka Clay descends down the hill. A 29.304 in sector 2 is respectable. Makes his way up towards the line now. Where's the Williams? Going to place himself a 1:15.865. Very strong start here for Shanaka Clay. Here comes Jarno Opmeer. Caraton goes second fastest. Opmeer now immediately goes to the top with a 1:15.720. But plenty of time still to be enlisted here. Brendan Lee being one of them. He'll now go second fastest, just behind Jarno Opmeer, the two-time champions coming together. Otis Lawrence, he went second fastest briefly, but Ronhaar has just dropped into third and has taken the fastest time again by a near 2.5 tenths of a second. Can anybody stop him?
That's diabolical stuff there from Thomas Ronhaar. Nicholas Longay is able to get close. than anyone has so far this session. But still, what a lap time coming out from Thomas Ronhard. They're a whole tenth and a bit over Nicholas Longe. A fantastic effort from him once again, and it might be a one and done session for Thomas Ronhard. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, that is a superb lap time coming out from him there. And, I just don't see how it's actually humanly possible for him to be this talented over one lap. Of course, things are a lot closer in the race, but Thomas Ronhard in qualifying just seems to have his best. And George, I don't know if you picked up on this, there's rain.
There is rain, light rain, in fact, making its way around the track. We were expecting it in 2 minutes' time, but a very timely fastest lap from Thomas Ronhard. Ruben Pedreño, you can see what it's done to his deficit. Look at that, nearly 6 tenths, just over 6 tenths slower than Thomas Ronhard. And this is a miserable scenario here for Alpine, because if this stays like this, then we're not going to see optimal conditions for a very long time. And this rain is set to stay with us here, Dan. So this could be a very early conclusion here of qualifying. And you can see now, Rasmussen's out as well.
Oh. Yeah, no, Freddie's just retired, I believe. That might be on circuit. I don't know. Okay, he's retired in the pit lane. Simon Weigand's back in the session. Good to see. I think the penalty's still coming his way. Ruben Pedreño has also retired from this session. Having a look at both Luke Smith and Ulash Zildrim, the pair of them are in that second sector on their outlaps on a set of the softs, and it just doesn't look drivable for these guys. They're not going to be able to set a lap time quicker than anyone in the top 10. No matter how hard they try, they could link up the perfect lap on the intermediate tires. They're not going to be quicker than Esteban Pukki at the moment. It's a real heartbreaker for Jake Benham as well. Just 100th off the back of the Ferrari driver. It's looking like his session is coming to an end, but we've already had a few retirements from this lobby, and unless this rain clears up in the next few minutes or so, looks like these guys are all going to be done for today. Yeah,
it looks like, in accordance to my telemetry, that the rain is going to stay with us right through Q2. There's a good chance, actually, we could see it carried through into Q3, in which case we will get a wet Q3 session, potentially. But sit tight, everybody. Luke Smith makes his way around the crest now, heading down the hill towards Toravip. Turn 5 coming up next. Ulas Zildrim as well in behind. These two will be regretting it slightly. They came out perhaps a little late, and DRS has been disabled, so that's going to add insult to injury here at this stage. Luke Smith, the time deficit is just going to be simply too much here for the Alpine as he heads up the hill out of turn 7 and turn 8 at Samsung, and then down the hill again towards Craig Jones at turn 9. Ulas Zildrim as well fighting the car further back as well, but Smith under convincing pressure, and it looks like that, obviously, based on what we're seeing in terms of the weather, and given the fact that the conditions are due to stay with us, and look at the deficits already. Sector 1, 23.380, which is vastly slower than anybody else here on track. 33.379. I mean, just to put it in perspective for you, that time alone in that middle sector is 4 seconds slower than Danny Berejney's second sector time. So there we go. It is the end of the road for Luke Smith and Ulas Zildrim. Some big shocks there, though, Dan. Jake Benham, Freddie Rasmussen, both of those drivers now out. If you're a Ferrari driver, I'm guessing you're celebrating Esteban Pukki staying in.
Yeah, absolutely. Esteban Pukki surviving by just 100th of a second. You can see, actually, both Esteban and Jarno Opmeer have fitted on a set of the intermediates. We still have 7 minutes in this session as now Ulas Zildrim spins the car heading through... what's that? That's turn number 4, I believe that is for him there. He is able to get himself ahead of Luke Smith. I'm not too sure, actually, why Luke didn't decide to finish up on that lap, because he would have been ahead, possibly. He could have been fighting for 14th position. Of course, it doesn't make much of a difference being P14 and 15, but every little does help. And so, yeah, it's an interesting call from Luke Smith there to come into the pit lane. But still... 7 minutes left to go in this session. Why not fit on a set of the intermediates? If we're going to have a wet Q3, it might make sense to do some practice here.
Yeah, we're just waiting to see if anyone else comes out onto the track. Ulas Zildrim has opted to remain out for another lap, so maybe just trying to get used to it, maybe just having a little bit of fun. He is on the soft compounded tyres has in fact invalidated this lap as well. So you will not be gaining anything off the back of this. Again, I'm looking at my telemetry. The rain is not due to stop for another 58 minutes, which is absolutely unreal. It's set to stay with us for a long period of time. Luke Smith has actually gone out on an outlap on Inters as well. So there we go. So we are seeing some Inters runs here at this stage. Of course, it'll be interesting to see where the time sits on the intermediates in comparison, just to see how much of a deficit there really is for some of these drivers. Obviously, Luke Smith can forget any prospect of coming into Q3, but at least to get some track time out there, and especially if you are in the drop zone, Dan, and you're not going to, certainly feature for another, should we say, distinct amount of time, because obviously we got not only Q3 to get through, but also the break in between the lobbies getting reset. You need to take advantage of as much track time as you possibly can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be out on circuit as much as you can, because if you don't utilize the time that you have available to you, it's 5 minutes, which is about 2 runs in these intermediate conditions. Why not go out for a lap and do it? And, save yourself losing your focus by, turning your attention elsewhere, going on your phone, scrolling through Twitter. It's not going to do you any good when it comes to the actual race. So utilize this time properly. Try get some laps on the board. And that is what we are seeing from a lot of these drivers at the minute who've come out on a set of the Inters. I believe Istvan Pukki is going to be the first one out on circuit, and George, in the space of just 5 minutes or something, look at the difference that this little bit of light rain has made, because the track is absolutely covered now.
Yeah, it is absolutely soaked. Luke Smith coming across the line, about to commence a flying lap here on the intermediate tyres. He's not alone though. Wilson Hughes has come out as well, many of them operating on that, should we say, wetter compound, as now Nicholas Longue also comes across the line. It's ideal to obviously get some steps out on track, just in prep in wet weather conditions. Longue, impressive here in Q2. A stellar clutch lap, a 1:15.615, and whilst obviously it's just outside a tenth of a second slower than Thomas Ronhaar, it puts him right in the ballpark, and clear by of Jana Watmir by over a tenth as well. So a great showing from Longue here in Q2. With 4 minutes still to go, obviously allows him to get some time without any pressure here on track. Because Ronhaar already retiring from the session. He's not concerned about getting laps out on the track, certainly in wet weather. He's just fully focused on what's going to happen in Q3. Shanaka Clay, very much of the same ilk as well. Istvan Pukki also joining us as well. Now, we've got to allude back to Pukki and his stellar results here in PSGL historically. I remember his Belgian Grand Prix win, which was also in mixed conditions as well, Dan, which we often see at Spa. But he is someone who can strategically make his way to the top, and he doesn't mind the odd safety car being thrown in either.
No, I really do think Istvan Pukki is a driver that does actually fly below the radar ever so slightly. He's a very impressive talent, and he definitely can, on his day, win. And having that victory in Belgium in those mixed conditions, it will give him confidence here this evening in Portimao to potentially fight for pole position. Of course, his Q2 run wasn't all that impressive. He's still, 6 tenths, 7 tenths off the back of Thomas Ronhaar. But, in Q3, in these interchangeable conditions where we're going to see potentially that wet weather, it really is, he could be a bit of a dark horse in this next session. So Istvan Pukki is one to look out for.
Yeah, he certainly is. Otis Lawrence also out on track now. He is 6.6 seconds off his own personal best in the first 2 sectors. Now heading through towards Sector 3. That goes to show the differential in time. So at the moment, he's lapping around about a 1:21 here at this stage, though that's going to go out a lot further. I would say, actually, just due to the mere spray that we've got kicked up here, we could see another 2 seconds be added onto this. I could easily see it being a 1:24. In fact, it's going to be a 1:25 from Otis Lawrence here at this point. Jana Watmir also out on track as well. Great to see the Flying Dutchman back. We allude back to his championship wins here at PSGL in the past. And for the first time that we have seen here, of course, in PSGL in the PC category, in PCF1 anyway, Jana Watmir the first not only to, should we say, win the championship, he's also the first to regain the championship as well after taking it in season 34 and notch together 4 race wins. He's the only one to do it more than once as well. So yet again making a name for himself, and he's looking for title number 5 here in PSGL. And as we all know, if you win the PSGL crown, it's a great, should we say, litmus test to certainly confirm as to who could yet be champion in F1 esports. So who knows, it could be a stellar time to be Jana Watmir.
I think it's PSGL champion. The first season that PSGL has in a game cycle. Whoever wins that ends up winning F1 Esports. Of course, Lucas Blakely did it back in season 31. Now, of course, Jarno Opmeer is back on top in PSGL. Does that mean he's going to go for a third title in esports? We'll have to wait and see, of course, whenever that does come around again. But his focus tonight, George, going to be on PSGL, going for title number 5-6, if you want to count that season 25 victory on the PlayStation. Throwing another stat, he's the only driver to win a title on both platforms in F1. So, that's a nice thing to note there. But Jarno Opmeer, one to certainly watch this evening, as he always is. I mean, he is arguably the greatest esports driver of all time. We'll see what he can do tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's done it over various different eras of the game. We obviously allude back to when he first won it. Of course, that was back when Sauber, of course, were in contention for titles, and they're back in contention again with Thomas Ronhaar. And they seem to have a way with the Dutchman, because they did it with Jarno. They do it, well, currently in contention of doing it here with Thomas Ronhaar, as we alluded to, after taking that Event 1 victory. And that form shows no signs of slowing down. At the top end, once again, Thomas Ronhaar with a 1:15.499 when the track was a lot drier. And in the session before, also managing to go to the very top as well. Jarno Opmeer crossing the line of 1:27.382. Again, alluding to that deficit as well between wet and dry conditions. It's a large difference there between them. 12 seconds separating his last lap from his fastest one here in Q2 as well, as we're now into injury time, should we say. Danny Berejnay also out on track, 2.5 seconds slower from his personal best as well at this stage too. We've got Wilson Hughes in the McLaren. McLaren looking relatively strong. Of course, we allude to Otis Lawrence, but remember, Wilson Hughes, also a former PSGL champion as well, Dan. Remember that almighty fight between he and Duncan Hoffland on the PS platform?
Yeah, no, that was myself and Luke Etheridge covering both of those seasons, if I'm not mistaken. He's I mean, my memory's hazy at this point, but I'm pretty sure Wilson Hughes, a two-time champion here in PSGL on the PlayStation platform. I believe it was season 27. Was it? You know what, George? Honestly, my memory's completely gone. I think it was. You know what?
We've had a lot of seasons in between then and now, I can assure you. So
I'm not going to bother, honestly. Wilson Hughes, he's a great driver, great
Fabulous.
guy.
Yeah.
Happy to see him here in F1 this evening, and he's just coming to the pit lane retiring. George, only Jarno Opmeer and a few others left on the circuit. It's actually both Mercedes of Jarno and Jake Benham to come across the line. Jarno will see his way into Q3, but I gotta say, big loss to see Jake Benham in 11th.
Yeah, that is a major loss, but you can definitely put that down to conditions. Certainly nothing wrong with Benham's pace from what we saw in Q1. But if we consider Wilson Hughes as well, now remember, did not feature at all in F1 Esports last season. That was only due to the fact that both Lucas Blakely and Thomas Ronhaar were in contention for the title, but more on that in a minute. Thomas Ronhaar, fastest in Q2 after a stellar 1:15.499. I would call it a clutch lap, but it was right at the start, wasn't it? Nicholas Longue second, with Jarno Opmeer in third, Otis Lawrence in fourth, Brendan Lee in fifth, Shanaka Clay in sixth, Danny Berejnay in seventh, Wilson Hughes in eighth, Alvaro Caraton ninth, Istvan Pukki in 10th. We're going to lose, unfortunately, Jake Benham, Freddie Rasmussen, a big scalp, gone there immediately. Ruben Pedreño in 13th, Luke Smith in 14th, and Ulas Ozyildirim, he is also out of qualifying. So there we go. Haas are all but out as well. So some major shocks in the midst. Definitely, probably the biggest shocks were there in that second session there, Dan. Obviously, losing the likes of Freddie Rasmussen and Jake Benham, a major shock. No surprises to see that the weather is still continuing to come down, but this time, no one's going to be able to set any times on an optimal set of slick tyres because they're all going to be under the same conditions. But alluding to Wilson Hughes, obviously, wasn't able to compete, should we say, in F1 Esports, like his teammates Lucas Blakely and Barry Burremand at that time, only merely due to the fact that both drivers were in contests for that World Championship. So he had to get his, should we say, his minutes in racing in PSGL. Now, coming back into this season now, has a great chance to race this time, but obviously has to contest with the likes of Danny Moreno and Lucas Blakely again. But do you think that's going to be too much of an issue, or can you see him rising above Danny Moreno at this stage, Dan?
I think so, and those two are really great friends, and I've got stories of Me, Wilson, and Danny, amongst a whole group of people playing GTA back in 2020. Incredible friendship that those two have, and to be a part of that McLaren team, I'd imagine there's going to be no bad blood as to whoever ends up taking that seat, but I definitely think there's going to be a bit of a passing of the torch. Wilson Hughes is more than deserving of being in F1 esports, and especially to have a race seat. Of course, not being able to compete last season due to the fact that both Lucas and Barry were title contenders. Fair enough that McLaren want to give those guys the fairest shot possible. Wilson Hughes unfortunately just drew the short stick there, and I definitely think he is going to get some minutes in this season. It's great to see him in Q3 amongst some of the biggest esports names in history. We'll see how this session pans out.
Yeah, I tell you what, shocks are definitely lining up. And speaking of shocks here, Dan, a lot of shocks around your moustache at this stage. I reckon it's the biggest shock of all heading into round one. I'm not going to tell you who said it. I think it was Timon, actually, who came out with it. But anyway, folks, now's the time to register your predictions. Let us know in the live chat, who do you think is going to grab pole position? I want to see you all queuing up. Just literally send it, folks. I want to see your selections as to who's going to get pole here in Q3 right now. So let's populate that live chat. Dan, who do you think it's going to be?
Well, the easy option would, of course, to be, to go for Thomas Ronhaar to take pole position. I never like to do that. I'm going to go with Otis Lawrence, the hot shot, the rising star in the e-league racing and F1 esports scene. I want to see Otis Lawrence on pole today.
Yep, we've got plenty of names being populated in this live chat right now, including my own. In fact, I can tell you, Brett Koch, that is not going to happen. Jarno Watmir, though, is one of the picks. We've got plenty more, including Thomas Ronhaar. No surprises there. A lot of people populating his name in the chat. Also, a hat tip from Jonah Martins, of course. Some of you might recognise him as Ferrari's resident race engineer, and he's going for Longuet in this one as well. And I tell you what, he's not out the question here, Dan, because of course if we consider what he's already brought to the table, it certainly has been stellar. Though I will say this, Thomas Ronhaar immediately purple in Sector 1.
That's what we normally see from Thomas Ronhaar. Shanaka Clay's unvalidated on his lap. Both Alfa Romeos in that second sector along
Otis
with Jarno Watmir.
Yeah.
Wow. Otis invalid though. Otis invalidated on his lap. That's got to be through Samsung corner. That really does catch these drivers out, especially in the wet. Otis is going to have to go again. Yeah,
he certainly will. Jarno Watmir, though, did take the purple second sector. He's going to be the first man to cross the line very shortly, though he did lose it out to Alvaro Caraton, who has gone fastest of all in Sector 2. Here comes the Flying Dutchman. Could he be a five-time champion? Goes to the top of the 125.016. Second fastest for Brendan Lee. We have also got Thomas Ronhaar. Not enough to topple Watmir. Two Dutchmen occupying Ps 1 and 2. First blood to Jarno Watmir at this stage. Though we've still got more drivers crossing the line. Caraton going a very respectable third fastest. Pookie fourth. We got Lee, of course, like I said before, he's now down to P5. Shanaka Clay, who was impressive on the run-up here to Q3. Sixth fastest. Can he improve? Certainly. Remember, he did invalidate. That is, of course, for sure. Wilson Hughes going sixth fastest. Nicholas Longuet now occupying P7. Not necessarily the best time to muscle in. Danny Berejnay is going to look to try and unleash a big lap as well. Has actually gone purple in the second sector, so this looks good for Berejnay as he now makes his way towards the line. Otis Lawrence is also invalidated, remember, but is going around again. A lot of the drivers will remain out on track here in wet conditions. Jarno has just gone purple again in the first sector. Berejnay to the top with a 124.821. The track seems to be improving. Jarno finding purple in that first sector and a personal improvement in Sector 2 as well, Dan.
This is what happens when more and more drivers set times in these intermediate conditions. That dry line begins to form, which means more grippers, of course, appearing on the circuit. Jarno Watmir improving by 0.2 of a second. He's completely flat on the battery, approaching the line. Is that going to matter? Yes, it will, unfortunately. Lost time in Sector 3, 24.9 for the Dutchman. Not enough to topple his Mercedes teammate, of course, in different colours here this evening. We've got a few more drivers in that final sector. Otis Lawrence being one of them, to the line for the young Welshman, and it's a 1 minute 24.755, almost a full 10th clear of Danny Berejnay. A fantastic effort from him there, and it's looking like, George, my prediction is in good stead at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thomas Ronhaar opting not to stay out and register another lap. A couple of drivers feel comfortable registering another lap, instead of coming into the pits, occupying another, fresh set of tyres. They would prefer to stay out on track and go again. Jarno did that, managed to muscle in that purple Sector 1. Otis, of of course, doing that as well. Obviously adding enough fuel to go around again, and obviously setting in an additional lap allows those tyres to heat up that little bit more as well. So maybe that's Otis's plan. Sometimes some drivers prepare for that. Danny Berejnay now in second. I got to give Berejnay credit for that first run. Brilliant to marshal a P1 time. Currently sits, though, just under 1.5 tenths, I think, on paper. In fact, no, less than that. Nearly 3/4 of a tenth slower than Otis Lawrence. Of course, Otis said in that blistering 1:24.755 in wet conditions. That is truly remarkable, though I would expect there being more time to be found from the likes of Ron Hart as well. Brendan Lee also down in 8th place. Depends on the setups too here as well, Dan, because with the wet weather conditions, the driver's obviously not prepared for the track, but they're also not prepared necessarily for the weather either. So in terms of setup, selection, setup choice, it is very much in the rounds of mystery at this stage.
Yeah, and of course, when drivers are preparing for a Grand Prix, when they know the circuit, they're still typically going to do less practice in the wet weather conditions. So to come into this race with no preparation in the dry, it's going to be even more difficult in the wet, and that is where I think we're starting to see some cracks beginning to form for Thomas Ronhart and the likes of Brendan Lee, Nicholas Longo have been very consistent at the top of qualifying thus far in this session. They are being overtaken by drivers who've just been able to get the laps in, but no worries for any of these guys. They've got plenty of time to come back out onto the circuit. Thomas Ronhart, Brendan Lee and Alvaro Carreton, all of these guys towards the bottom half of the top 10. They are out on circuit early, and we'll see what they can do.
Yeah, we've still got 4 minutes and 25 or so to go, and Thomas Ronhart, Alvaro Carreton, Brendan Lee, all out on 8 laps now. It might be the case that they're going to go for one long run right to the very end, because of course we are coming in towards the closing stages. We are coming into the second half of qualifying in Q3. And with Ronhart now occupying 5th place, that's not a bad foundation to be at. Now, whilst, of course, prior, we've always seen Ronhart, should we say, out of the block straight away. In prior sessions, of course, he's been able to do that, but you can't necessarily do that in wet conditions because there are many variables to throw in the mix over a solitary lap. But now, occupying P5, he has a chance not only to have delta to measure against, which a lot of drivers do like to utilise. In his case now, maybe an improved track as well. The current air temperature, 23 degrees. Track temperature at 27. As now Ronhart takes the decline, heading down through Galp Corner. A little twitch though, Dan.
He was sliding his way through the final corner there. Might kill his run ever so slightly in towards this first corner. It's a very fast first section. Of course, it'd be about 200 kilometers per hour in the dry, 189 through turn number 1 for Thomas Ronhart there. He's not going to let that phase him all too much, and with this improving circuit, he's going to be able to find time. Just got to push now, see what he can do as he heads up the hill and down in towards turn number 5. At the end of the first sector, he's improving by 1/10 of a second. It's looking good so far for Thomas Ronhart.
Yeah, it's looking solid. He's certainly looking primed right now. Remember, P5 on the board with a 1:25.045, but a 10th improvement can go a long way here for Thomas Ronhart as he now heads down in towards the next double right-hander. Samson Curve coming up next out of turn 8. He'll then head up the hill towards Craig Jones at turn 9. Plenty of other cars out on track. Lawrence still yet to come out, but he has time. Danny Berejnay and Shanaka Clay. Lawrence now out on the circuit as well, knows that that time doesn't necessarily grant him pole, and Thomas Ronhart is going to look to try and muscle in on, should we say, Otis Lawrence's party at this stage. He has taken purple in the first sector here as Thomas Ronhart, as well as green in the second sector. So a personal improvement on both counts with the all-time best Sector 1 lap in this session as well. Here at this stage, a great foundation for a potential barnstormer of a lap here at Portimao as he takes the descent down through Gulp Corner and through towards the start-finish line. Will he topple Otis Lawrence as he now makes his way through? No! A disaster in Sector 3 has set him back. He's going to have to go again. He's got time, and I'm sure he's got the fuel. But at this stage, that is not a message you want to send to your other competitors.
And he's invalidated, heading through turn number 1. Has Thomas Ronhart crumbled? I was riding on board with him. He's sliding his way through the first sector. It looks to be like his qualifying is coming to an end. He can recharge the battery and potentially go again. But George, he did what he did on that outlap, coming to begin that flying run. He slid his way through the final corner of turn number 15. He's really struggling with that part of the circuit. Thomas Ronhart does find an improvement, but it's not enough to get him up any positions, and now with multiple drivers on laps or on out laps, it's not looking good for Thomas Ronha.
Yeah, plenty of them as well, backing out, Shanaka Clay being one of them, unfortunately suffering here on this outlap. The first sector was actually really good at 24.062, faster than Otis Lawrence's first sector in his previous run. I can tell you who is going fastest, though, is Brendan Lee in the second sector. He is looking dialed in right now. 24.3 isn't the best in Sector 1, but has immediately responded with a purple Sector 2 here with a 33.144. He'll need a brilliant third sector in order to even threaten top spot, but a little wiggle heading out to the final two corners as the rear wing stepped out slightly. The rear tyres spinning here on the tarmac here at Portimao. Can Brendan Lee improve? Only up one spot. 7th fastest. Needs to find a lot more here as Longay has gone green in the second sector, but still the time not necessarily representative.
Now, George, I've just seen Otis Lawrence up by almost a 10th and a half in that first sector. He's already on provisional pole position at the minute. It's looking very good for the young driver. Nicholas Longay he's far down on his lap at the minute, so I think all the eyes surely have got to go the way of Otis Lawrence. Jarno Opmeer is just ahead of him on circuit, down unfortunately in Sector 2. Otis, however, has lost time as well through that second part of the lap. The clock has struck 0. No new laps can be completed. Who's going to take pole?
I'll tell you what, it could be a shock here. The one driver that is not in F1 Esports cannot qualify for F1 Esports just due to mere age. The youngest, shall we say, prospect in F1 sim racing, who's currently on top here, and could yet grab pole off the most vastly experienced drivers you'll see in the scene. Otis backing out altogether. Jarno has finished 4th fastest. Danny Berejne, who currently sits on the front row, not improving either. 2nd fastest at this point. Shanaka Clay in 3rd as well. He's not improving at this stage. Someone who is improving, though, is Nicholas Longay. A clutch lap on the table here. 24.3 in Sector 1 looks good. Brendan Lee still looking for improvements. I don't think he's going to improve. In fact, 31.5 in Sector 1. Less than impressive, but Longay, he is well and truly up on his time, as you'd expect, his last time being a 1:48.13. So he needs something massive here to try and topple those further up ahead of him at this stage now, as we see Longay dipping down. The final two corners that remain on this circuit, a 1:34.027 is what he registered last time. And now, after a 24.3 in Sector 1, 33.6 in Sector 2, it might not be pretty right now, but it could be brilliant come the end of the clock. No! Lost out, should we say, in the last sector at 28.1. I don't think he's necessarily got a wet setup on here, Dan.
I don't think that is really to the fault of Nicholas Longay. I was riding on board with him throughout most of that lap, and it didn't seem like he was slow really at all. I just think that the track has potentially gotten worse throughout this session. The rain seems to have picked up, so I think conditions have gotten worse, and that is why no one has really been able to improve on their laps. Otis Lawrence taking pole position, the only driver who is not eligible to be on the F1 Esports grid, has taken pole position here in PSGL. Remarkable stuff from the young McLaren Shadow, the Veloce Academy, whatever he's a part of. He's doing a fantastic job, and he's on pole ahead of Danny Berejne.
Yes, some major shocks here in Q3, though the biggest one, it's Otis Lawrence, the only young starlet that can't qualify for F1 Esports. He goes fastest of anybody, does the young Welshman, representing the McLaren Shadow outfit, and has gone fastest and higher than Danny Berejne, who also joins him on the front row. Shanaka Clay as well, answering back the critics. 3rd fastest here at Portimao, with Jarno Opmeer in 4th. Thomas Ronha in 5th fastest as well, just not quite muscling in that time that he needs to grant himself top spot. Alvaro Caraton in 6th. Brendan Lee in 7th, Istvan Pukki in 8th, with Wilson Hughes in 9th, Nicholas Longay in 10th place. That's your top 10 heading through to the race later on. Some dramatic scenes, the weather certainly with grand implications into the results, but nevertheless, we're going to be back very shortly, folks. Do not go away. We're going to take a very short commercial break. Well, welcome back, folks. We just witnessed certainly a stellar qualifying session. The race is about to come up next, and Portimao, I think, has definitely whet the appetites, I think, for many viewers, including ourselves as well, Dan. I think a very bizarre qualifying session, to say the least. Let's take a look at the audience votes as to who takes pole. Jarno Opmeer was the most popular choice, 52%. Thomas Ronhaar with a 29% vote. Otis Lawrence, only 13% of the vote, but he was third most popular out of the 4 that were selected. He's so deserving of all the plaudits he gets. I mean, we look at his age. We've got to disregard that, surely. I mean, talking about young stars, I mean, we look at the darts form at the moment. Luke Littler at 16 years of age, about to win a PDC crown. We've got a young driver who's 14, 15 years of age, and he could yet beat some of the very best in F1 esports.
Yeah, absolutely. It is just mental how Otis Lawrence has really been able to take charge on this F1 esports caliber, basically the F1 esports grid, with the addition of Otis Lawrence. That is what we have in PSGL this season, and he is doing a fantastic job. And he had issues before. I think everyone is able to see that in his racing it wasn't up to par with sort of the racecraft, but he has fixed those issues. He's taken all the critique that he got, and he has come back so much stronger, and he's better than he's ever been. Otis Lawrence, one to watch for the future. I'm going to say it a million times over. You've got to keep your eye on him.
Yeah, you do. I mean, we spoke about his performances in PSGL historically. He is a proven winner. He has been part of the very best, of course, came up through the FRA fold and then eventually moving to Veloce. I mean, now has since taken a seat at McLaren Shadow as part of their academy. They definitely hold him in high esteem as well. A young man from the Rhondda Valley as well in Wales. What a heritage. Certainly the likes of Josh Edo, one of the richest talents to come out of the Rhondda as well in recent years, has now also been featuring in F1 esports. He himself as well, an F1 esports pole sitter. I remember predicting his pole position back at Abu Dhabi at the end of last season, live on the F1 esports. Eventually this man's got to win a crown, because once upon a time
Extreme fun.
we were touting him as a potential talent for the future.
I think the stream's gone down, George.
It's still going on my side.
Really? It's paused. Everyone's saying F and yeah, no, okay. I think it's come back now. It just cut out for a minute there, and you can see the chat's gone crazy with F. I guess F to pay respect or whatever. But it seems like we're back here in PSGL. Apologies for that, everyone. But yeah. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought now.
Well, no, I mean, we were looking, obviously, I'm looking on the screen here. It was fine for me. It was saying the bitrate, maybe YouTube having a problem. So apologies there, folks. So there we go. Yeah, the chat, I think the chat had you crowing there, Dan, by the looks of it. But yeah, I mean, looking back, I mean, we're just talking about Otis as a great talent. I mean, a young Welshman to come to the forefront. And, to give him, all the due credit in the world, he, of course, a future star in waiting. But we've got to look at Danny Berejnay. I think as someone who has, of course, as I said, been always the bridesmaid, never necessarily the bride, partnered with Brendan Lee when Brendan Lee won his World Championship. Then you had, of course, Jarno Opmeer, who would become champion with Berejnay on his side back at Sauber. And, there was once a time when we were touting Berejnay as a title winner. Again, though, he's on the front row of the grid here at Portimao. So you've got to give him every chance once again, right?
I think, yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Danny Berejnay, he has got to be regarded as one of the best team players in F1 esports history, always serving as that number 2 driver. He's the Bottas to Brendan Lee's Hamilton or whatever back in the day, and then he's helped out Jarno Opmeer but win that title. And I think both times they've won the Constructors' Championship, if I'm not mistaken, or I guess the team standings, with Danny Berejnay in that system. And I think once again, heading into F1 esports this season with Jarno Opmeer, Jake Benham, and Danny, of course, at Mercedes, 3 incredibly talented drivers. I don't know how they're going to divvy up any of that time between those 3, because all 3 of them is completely deserving of where they are. And Danny Berejnay really does show how that tenure, it does help him out, because he's been a part of the frame for so long at this point. I remember, I think that 2018 draft videos or whatever that they did, the little mini series where all the rookies would come in and then get drafted. Danny Berejney was there, and he certainly stood out as one of the best drivers, and that is still the case today.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and he's back again. Front row of the grid has got a great chance here. Of course, driving the Red Bull, not something we generally see, but he is on the front row nonetheless, and that's what's important. Certainly Mercedes will be taking a lot of positives out of that. Jarno Opmeer not too far away either. He, of course, the sole Mercedes getting through to Q3 because Jake Benham was unfortunately eliminated in Q2. Of course, Jake Benham starting from 11th on the grid. Jarno Opmeer starting from 4th. Then Alfa Romeo with 2 of their cars in the top 10. Again, the Ron Haar and Lee double act. Brendan Lee back in the top 10. Always a solid performer, Brendan Lee, Dan, and a former world champion. I allude to the fact that, this era of the game is very much similar to where Lee was, should we say, back in 2017-18. The handling model back to some sort of semblance that the drivers are used to. So is this why we're seeing some improved Brendan Lee performances?
I don't know. I never really saw Brendan Lee as falling off, so to say. He definitely had a dip in performance at some points in the last few seasons when that handling model didn't really suit him, but he's definitely come back into his own, back into that 2017-2018 form that we saw from the little boy in the Mercedes. It's great to see that he is still bossing it as a part of that Alfa Romeo scheme, and he is doing it incredibly well here tonight. And of course, I really want to see how himself and Thomas Ronhart do. Brendan Lee is, of course, I think, got to be a fan favourite of a lot of the fans watching. We've got 1,300 people watching this evening. Brendan Lee is going to be a lot of their lists, top of a lot of their lists as to being their favourite. So it's great to see that Brendan is still performing, and I'm seeing a lot of people in the live chat asking, when are we starting? George, we've got the countdown, 15 seconds to go.
Yeah, only a matter of seconds, folks, so do not turn away, and we just want to say a big thank you to each and every single one of you for tuning in tonight. Obviously, there have been some struggles in the world of the F1 game in recent times, but obviously here at PSGL, we are here to bring you the league racing action from the best drivers in the world, and it's great to be back here as well. Please make sure you leave a like and also leave a subscribe as well. Make sure you stay in support of PSGL, and we'll continue to bring you more racing action every Wednesday here in the PC F1 Championship. And remember, you will not know what the track is until 10 minutes before each of the races. At least that's the format we're using tonight. Could well change. Tonight's very much a trial phase. Should it not work out, then obviously the calendar gets revealed, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's all based on what happens tonight. But yeah, really appreciate all your support. Looking ahead, we've got lots to look forward to. The stream is now, the race, should I say, starting to light up. Folks, let us know in the live chat as to who you think is going to win the first round here in the PSGL Season 35-36 Championship. We want to hear from you in the chat. Dan, I'm going to ask you for your prediction now, please.
Oh, it's all gone for me. I've forgotten most of the grid, to be completely honest, but I want to go with Otis Lawrence. I went for him in qualifying and it ended up going my way, but I think I'm going to switch it up for the race. I'm going to say Danny Berejney to take the win today.
Yeah, well, Danny Berejney with a great chance off the front row. Let us know. We've got Jarno in the chat that has been selected. We've also got Freddie Rasmussen getting a head nod as well. Plenty more saying Jarno too. So let us know, folks. Keep it coming. People saying Luke Smith even further up in the chat. Ron Haar also getting a head tilt as well again from Tigranchik. Keep it coming, folks. Let us know. We've got Knots saying Jarno Cookmere. We've got Jarno Truly, says Diego Zorzo. I actually met him last year. In fact, his son Enzo was racing in the Euro Formula Open Championship. Really nice guy. Also, George Morgan. I win every week when I get to watch it with you guys, honestly. Bidham, Jake Benham, of course, getting a head nod. Shanaka Clay, a great selection, Dan, and has a great chance here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, and a fan favourite snack, Scotch egg, as well, has been predicted there. Someone's got me with that before, and it's really sent me the wrong way. So I'm always looking out for those names now. But yeah, fantastic array of drivers that could potentially win today. I have no clue, to be completely honest, and I'm so excited to see how this race turns out. Yeah,
Mika Salo for the dub. Danny as well. Danny Berejney getting a head nod. Nicholas Longe, as well as Jarno Opmeer, the Flying Dutchman. Robert Borsema coming out with that one as well. He's got a great chance, to be fair. Now, the lights are about to go red here, folks, at Portimao. Here we go. And it's pedal to the metal. And it is go, 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 go. And Otis Lawrence with a great jump. Danny Berejnay a little slow off the line. Shanaka Clay testing him, heading through turns 1 and 2. Ron Ha and Otmir coming together. And Ron Ha has immediately tried unseating the Flying Dutchman as the two of them go wheel to wheel. Heading through towards turn 4. And it is going to be Ron Ha who takes 4th away from Jarno Otmir. But it's Otis Lawrence who leads here at Portugal as we see them come round Torrevip.
Fantastic stuff from Thomas Ron Ha, getting himself ahead of Jarno Otmir. Lots of moves being made further back behind. Thomas Ron Ha is on a flyer all over the rear of Shanaka Clay at the minute as they're all swapping, changing positions, following through in this first sector. Fantastic start today.
Yeah, blistering start indeed. Plenty of action still to come though. We've got a long race ahead, 33 laps in total. A little tap there from Longuet's rear end. Meets the front wing of Ruben Pedreño at this point. Plenty though within 2.5 tenths, 3 tenths of a second. Nothing separating them. The gaps will be thinner than Fly's eyelashes as we now see Thomas Ron Ha once again on the tail of Shanaka Clay. Now, differing strategies further down. Caraton occupying the mediums, as is Brendan Lee. So, not a surprise to see the two Alfa Romeos occupying two alternate strats as Ron Ha now goes for the move, this time past Shanaka Clay, who's unfortunately going to lose out here. P3 on the table. Berejnay staying behind Otis Lawrence despite the aero heading down towards turn 1. But Ron Ha blistering at the start.
Incredible stuff from the Dutchman there, of course, winning round number 1 of the F1 Esports Series. He is carrying that momentum forward here into PSGL, already making up 2 places ahead of Shanaka Clay and Jarno Otmir. Brendan Lee is down the inside of Alvaro Caraton, further back behind as they're going to run now wheel to wheel and towards turn number 5, 6 and 7. And it seems like Alvaro Caraton has just about been able to muscle out Brendan Lee there. Great to see so much battling already, but George, it's a long race. We're only on lap number 2 of 33 here.
Yeah, and they're going to be under pressure here, Brendan Lee and Caraton. Certainly in the initial, because the medium tyres certainly aren't faster, but amazing move there from Brendan Lee. Oh, took him by surprise as they came through turn 10 at Portimao. The blind right-hander, Caraton, did not see it coming. That is the mark of an experienced and a former F1 Esports champion. Brendan Lee with a stellar move here on lap 2.
That's vintage stuff there from Brendan Lee. That's the stuff that we see back in F1 2017, 2018, when, of course, he won his titles. Incredible stuff from him there. Further up the order, Jarno Otmir is going to go through on Shanaka Clay and is closing to the rear of Thomas Ron Ha. Switches to the outside line. 2 moves into 1 corner. Fantastic stuff from the defending champion here in PSGL. Through on Shanaka Clay. Switches it back to the left-hand side of Thomas Ron Ha and gets himself onto the podium.
Yeah, 2 moves for the price of 1 here for Jarno Otmir. Has managed to launch himself past Shanaka Clay, and at the same time he left Thomas Ron Ha for dead heading through towards turn 1. Stellar move from Otmir, and now on the back of Danny Berejnay. Freddie Rasmussen currently in the midst of a fight of his own here. P10, he has just managed to keep Wilson Hughes down in P11. Luke Smith now all over his tail. Quite the conglomerate further down as well on the hard tyres here, Dan. Ulas Yildirim being one of them, Alfie Butcher as well as Yoni Tormala as they make their way over the crest. So definitely some open doors for strategy here.
Yeah, it's great to see on this F1 23 game how much variety we get in the strategy as Thomas Ron Ha and Shanaka Clay do battle for P4 at the minute in towards now turn number 13. It looks like Thomas Ron Ha's just about ahead, but the inside line for Shanaka Clay allows for him to switch it up the inside through Sagres corner, and now Thomas Ron Ha going to be all over the back of the Williams driver, but doesn't look like he'll be close enough to go for the move here.
Well, he's going to try something down the straight, I think. Definitely going to work on the ERS now as well. Opens up that rear wing as he looks to give chase on Shanaka Clay. Swaps to the inside, to the outside as well. Clay, though, shutting the door. Brendan Lee watching all this unfold as they now head through towards turns 2, turns 3 and turns 4. Still Lawrence out in front. Berejnay in second. Jarno Otmir with a stellar start to his race as well. Lap 4 of 33 now underway. Still a long way to go as they now make their way down through towards the next left-hander. Otmir going slightly defensive, just trying to make Shanaka Clay just work a little bit here. But I think Clay has got further things to worry about. We have got some battles further down because Jed Norgrove is now coming wheel to wheel with Ruben Pedreño, the Alpine, now 13th with Norgrove down in 14th. And Norgrove, one of the feel-good factors from Bahrain in Event 1 of F1 Esports, Dan.
Jed Norgrove, fantastic stuff from him. Of course, he's flown under my radar personally in recent months, but it's great to see that he, I believe it was P7 in Bahrain. It's great to see him once again fighting it here in F1 with some very established drivers ahead now of Nicolas Longuet, who I can't help but notice, George, he's lost 5 places at the beginning of this Grand Prix. Those mediums not working all too well for him. Brendan Lee and Alvaro Caraton have both been able to remain in position. Nicolas Longuet, he's had a tough fight here.
Yeah, but stark contrast to his teammate Istvan Pukki, who started 11th and is now up to 8th. He's actually gained one of the most from anybody. Incidentally, Jed Norgrove also up 2 places as well. Ron Har now threatening Clay again as they head through towards turn 1, just sending a little message, maybe just to make Clay a little uncomfortable as they come through sector 1. And once again, all the gaps relatively equilateral. The closest gap currently formulating between Ron Hart and Clay right now as they head down the hill once again. Ron Hart again showing to the inside. No move there just yet for Ron Hart as they make their way out of Tora Vip and up the hill. Still though, Otis Lawrence out in front. A cool, calm, collective drive. Hasn't had to worry too much. Berejnay though, I think is quite happy to wait behind. Remember, they're all on the same strategies in the top 5.
Yeah, it's a very long race here. They want to stay behind and not burn up these tyres, especially these soft runners. They've had their fights. They just want to settle into a rhythm now. Try and get these tyres as long as possible because they've not dropped Brendan Lee or Alvaro Caraton at all. Both the pair of them are going to be able to go very long into this Grand Prix on this set of the mediums, then switch it over to that softer compound towards the end of this race. They'll be a lot quicker than the top 5 at the minute. Keep your eyes on Brendan Lee and Alvaro Caraton, but for the time being, Otis Lawrence doing a stellar job at the front of the order.
Yeah, he is. Brendan Lee now starting to formulate a gap of nearly 6/10 now away from Thomas Ronhar, who's incidentally closing up here on Shanaka Clay. They are going to go wheel to wheel again, heading down now on lap 6 in towards turn 1. Ronhar with the inside line, and that's going to benefit him majorly as he takes P4, but Clay looking to answer back. Doesn't quite have the momentum to make it happen heading out of turn 3, but coming through turn 4, it's Ron Har now chasing after Jarno Opmeer as they were at the start of the Grand Prix. So now we have got Lawrence in first, Berejnay in second, Opmeer third, Ron Har fourth, and Clay in fifth.
Yeah, great stuff there. Very clean racecraft from the pair of them. I was alluding to it earlier on about Shanaka Clay, how he's never really been involved in incidences. He knew that Thomas Ronhar was going to go up the inside, not give that position up whatsoever, and decided to back out there to avoid catastrophe. Fantastic stuff from the pair of them. Shanaka did all he could, and he's limited the damage done because he's still right on the back of Thomas Ronhar. Now following in the slipstream of 4 cars, will be able to recharge that battery, potentially go for the move in a few laps time. We'll have to wait and see. It's only lap number 6, but George, it feels like these laps are flying through at the minute.
We'll be honest, this Van Pukki looking a little bit fraught here at this stage. I think just the apex sort of losing him slightly. Jake Benham looking vastly more threatening as they make their way down the hill this time around as well. This time to begin lap 7 of 33. Lawrence still out in front. He's been unperturbed at the very top. Pukki, though, I think is going to lose out on a little bit of aero here because Caraton's got quite the gap in between he and, of course, Pukki himself. Benham now looking to try and close. Has remained within that 2.5 of a second gap right now. Because Pukki on the softs. Now, we might be starting to see the decline here of the soft compound of tyre. Remember, that medium will go a little bit longer, so differing strategies, 2 alternates. Of course, soft to medium, medium to potentially soft as well, depending on how long they can carry them through. And those on the hards are obviously looking to try and go as long as possible. Obviously trying to utilise a lengthy, shall we say, long run, an overcut of sorts, as we now see them make their way up through Samsung yet again. Benham on the charge as they come up over the crest. Ronhar now on the tail here, a fellow Dutchman, Jarno Opmeer. Both of them within, well, should we say Shanaka Clay and Ronhar within 0.3 of a second of each other. Brendan Lee also added into that fight. The mediums definitely seem to be working here, Dan, because Lee looks more effective on those medium tyres.
Yeah, Brendan Lee's been able to close up to Shanaka Clay, and just last lap, Nicolas Longuet was also able to get through on Jed Norgrove for 14th position. So it seems like these mediums beginning to come into their own. The softs, of course, have the most grip at the beginning of their stint, but they die out a lot quicker than those medium tyres. The sort of perfect middle ground when it comes to tyres, and Brendan Lee utilising that to their best. He's been able to hang on to the back of all the soft runners when they have had the advantage in terms of tyres, and now that he has got the advantage, Brendan Lee will go on the attack very soon as Jed Norgrove further back behind, losing yet another position, this time to Ulash Zildrum.
Yeah, and that's the hard tyres coming into play there. So the softs, I think, are struggling here at this point. We'll have to wait and see when they choose to box. Of course, we've still got, remember, 33 laps in total. So let's sit tight here as we see the cars make their way through Tora Vip. Still Lawrence leads. Ron Hart now getting to within 0.2 of Jarno Opmeer. So these two starting to close up again. It seems that Ron Hart might be more effective in the corners, maybe preferring a higher downforce setup here at this stage, which might also answer as to why he was so effective in qualifying. We'll have to wait and see whether that is the case, as we now see them head through towards the final sector. There is Freddie Rasmussen, and in comes Luke Smith as well, coming together with Wilson Hughes. Hughes trying to defend here, has got the McLaren in front of the Alpine. A switch back here from Smith, can't quite open the door, but Hughes now retaining P11. It was a very, very tight and contested situation heading through towards Sector 3, but Hughes doing enough.
And now Wilson Hughes has lost a lot of time now to Freddie Rasmussen. 7/10 is the gap between the pair of them. Will Luke Smith try and take advantage once again of the McLaren driver? It doesn't seem like it. He's not on the battery or anything, so he's going to hang back for the time being, remain in P12. The two Alpines in tandem at the moment. They can do some work and try and make their way up the order. On lap number 9 of 33, it seems like at the front, everyone sort of settled into that rhythm that I spoke about earlier, but I can't help but notice Otis Lawrence, George, is beginning to pull away ever so slightly from Danny Berger. The gap's about 4-5 tenths of a second between the pair of them. That was about 2 tenths, maybe 3 a lap or two ago. So Otis Lawrence maybe picking up the pace here.
Yeah, he definitely has gapped just slightly. I think it's more about Berger just staying behind, opting just to be patient, I think, at this point. I got to give credit as well to Jake Benham, who's having a great drive here so far in 9th. He's been closing up on Istvan Pukki and threatening with every turn, perhaps managing his tyres vastly better. Donoso, those succumb into a 3-second time penalty here at this point, so not ideal. The warnings are being dished out as well, and I can tell you as well that one driver is on 3 warnings at this point is Istvan Pukki, so he's definitely struggling here, and I think utilising more of the track limits to try and subjugate the danger here against Jake Benham. But as long as this carries on, and bear in mind Jake Benham 0 warnings to his collection, at least for now, and this could prove to be an almighty threat against Pukki's race should this continue.
Yeah, of course, I'd imagine 3 warnings. That'd be 2 for track extensions and then 1 for a bit of contact maybe earlier on in the Grand Prix. Nicolas Longuet doing a good job on Room Pedreño, splitting the Alpines, his former team, of course, but running ever so slightly wide through that first corner. Yeah, as I was saying about Istvan Pukki, he's going to have those warnings that he can't utilise anymore, so Jake Benham's going to have a little bit more leeway, could potentially go on the attack ever so slightly more aggressively on Istvan and not have so much of a punishment there. We'll have to wait and see how that comes to fruition in the next few laps, but at the minute it seems like the driver who's making the most moves, Nicolas Longuet, trying to catch up to Luke Smith, who's all over the rear of Wilson Hughes. Yeah,
and just an instance on Nicolas Longuet, of course, remember he started further up as well. Luke Smith again doing battle with Wilson Hughes, outside line for Smith, and manages to trump Wilson Hughes this time around on the soft tyres. He's now up to 11th place, does have a warning to his name as well, but has managed to launch himself ahead here of Wilson Hughes at this stage. Though Jake Benham again also threatening on the back of Istvan Pukki, so a lot of activity in the bottom half of the top 10 and also in the top half of the bottom 10.
Yeah, I saw that move on board of Luke Smith there, and it looked a bit like a push to pass through turn number 7 of Samsung. He was all over the rear of Wilson Hughes. It looked like there was a little bit of contact between the pair of them. Wilson Hughes gets a bad run out of that corner and unfortunately loses that position. I don't know if Wilson is going to be too happy with that display from Luke Smith, but I guess you can maybe put that down to hard racing. Luke Smith up to 11th. As now, George, we have seen the first pit stop from a soft runner. It's Jed Norgrove onto a set of the mediums to potentially go to the end of this race. He was really struggling towards the end of that soft stint, and I imagine all of the leaders and everyone on that Red Wall tyre going to be suffering the same thing.
Yeah, I would imagine so. We did see the decline come into effect. Brendan Lee has retained his, should we say, his position in terms of the delta between he and Shanaka Clay, and Caraton just happy to receive the tow. Now we'll have to see whether this strategy does pan out here for those on the mediums, especially if you're Lee and Caraton. You're in a favourable position here prior to your pit stop. Of course, they'll be able to finish on the faster soft compounded tyre as we go deeper into the race. Thomas Ronhar, let's wait and see whether anyone responds to Jed Norgrove's run onto the mediums now, as we now see them around on lap 11 of 33. It's still, though, Lawrence out in front, and he's remained there ever since. Of course, remember, going fastest of all in qualifying after achieving that pole. No cars choosing to come into the pits this time, though, so Norgrove well and truly up and above. The pit window has opened, though, for those on that soft to medium tyre strategy. So we see them come through. 3 cars have come in, though, Wilson Hughes being one of them. Freddie Rasmussen opting for a stop as well here at this stage, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move from all of those drivers. Of course, Jed Norgrove with that undercut was potentially threatening their positions, but they've covered that one off there, and they should all be able to stay ahead of Jed Norgrove, just heading down now in towards turn number 1 as everyone is exiting the pit lane. The undercut, of course, can be a very powerful tool that you can utilize, and in fact, Jed Norgrove's come out ahead of Wilson Hughes, but the tyre drop-off on this game and the difference that 1 or 2 laps makes on the tyres is immense. So got to watch out for Jed Norgrove being a little bit slower later on in the race, and that is why some drivers particularly prefer to go for that overcut. I know Jarno Otmir very fond of staying out long on his initial stint and then getting that overcut later, pitting later.
Yeah, massive move here for Freddie Rasmussen after a little mistake here from Istvan Pukki, again having issues with, this time, the brakes. The car just getting a little squirrely heading out of Tora Vip, and it was certainly Freddie who literally plumbed for it at the very last moment, found the inside line, made his way through. A stellar run from Rasmussen. As now we're seeing more and more cars make their way in. Now we are seeing Clay come into the pits as well. Jarno Otmir on the push now. Danny Berejne going for the lead of the race here now on lap 13. Here comes Jarno Otmir as well, side by side with Otis Lawrence. The battle against young and experienced drivers coming together here at Portimao. And Otis has not only lost the lead, but he's lost P2 as well. Berejne now in front.
Oh, but here comes Otis Lawrence in towards Torre Vip. Will be trying to look to go down the inside of Jarno Otmir. Almost into the back of the Flying Dutchman, and that could have been disastrous. The Otis Lawrence was heavy on the battery, trying to go on the attack of the Dutchman, who's ever so slightly pushed out in turn number 1, which is why I think he's got a chip on his shoulder with the Dutchman. Now 2 Mercedes esports drivers leading this Grand Prix. Otis Lawrence relegated from first to third in the span of just 1 corner, but of course the pit stops have to come very, very soon. Thomas Ronhaar had the best view in the house, and he's all over once again on the rear of Otis Lawrence. No brakes for the McLaren driver this evening. Is in towards turn number 13. Ronhaar had to think of it, but I'd imagine all these drivers, now that we've seen Shanaka Clay come into the box, and Jake Benham as well, they are going to think about coming in for their set of the mediums.
Yeah, surely they've got to respond now. You'd figure that the top 4 are going to come in this lap. There's Danny Berejne. Of course, he doesn't have to worry about Freddie Rasmussen because he's already pitted. In comes as well Jarno Otmir. So, they're side by side in the pit lane. Otis and Jarno there, very close together. And they were fighting over who was going to lead between the pair of them, heading into the pits. I've never seen that before. But absolutely phenomenal scenes. The gall of Otis Lawrence to try something like that was unbelievable.
He really did try to make the move on Jarno Otmir. I don't think he's happy whatsoever with what happened down at turn number 1. I gotta say, it's hard, fair racing. Simon Weigang once again getting a penalty. Now it's both Aston Martin drivers. Here's Shanaka Clay coming out just ahead of Jarno Otmir. Jarno not going to take this one lying down, and they're going to be side by side for what is a net P2 in through turn number 3 and 4. Otis Lawrence looking to find his way into this fight as well. Jarno Otmir going to be all over the rear of Shanaka Clay, who's got those warmed up medium tyres. Into Torre Vip they go. They're all going to run in tandem. Freddie Rasmussen, though, he's done a fantastic job with his undercut. Now up the inside of Otis Lawrence. Almost went for that move, but he's backed out now through turn number 5.
Yeah, outrageous scenes indeed. Freddie Rasmussen not too worried about sticking his oar in. He has done so now consistently so far. Penalties have been mustered to both Aston Martins as well. Unfortunately for Weigang and Donoso, both of them with 3 seconds. We got battles further back as well. It's getting so fraught between Istvan Pukki and Jake Benham once again. And remember, Benham was causing problems for Pukki earlier on. They're going to remain wheel to wheel. It's Mercedes v Ferrari heading through the final sector, and Jake Benham with the inside line heading through towards the final 2 corners, heading out of turn 14. Absolutely sensational. The stamina test from Jake Benham. He asked the major questions and he has taken it from Pukki, but Pukki's coming straight back here, Dan.
In towards turn number 1 now they go. Battles looking to be brewing further up ahead, but here's Istvan Pukki around the outside of Jake Benham. 2 promising stars in the F1 esports scene. It looks like Istvan Pukki's got the better of by Jake Benham this time by. I respect the goal to go for that move in towards turn number 1, especially around the outside, but Jake Benham does a fantastic job of defending that move there, and the pair of them will remain 16th and 17th at the minute. Jake Benham leading Istvan Pukki.
Yeah, it certainly is. Brendan Lee, of course, is currently leading this race, though in terms of the net phase at this point, of course, that is Danny Berejne, who leads here in PSGL. And this, of course, being round 1 here at Portimao. Remember, mystery race, the track was chosen at random And of course, not revealed until just before we got started in the session. So none of the drivers have had the opportunity to practice. This is going to be a very true test of performance from the drivers as well. Dan, have you got an update?
Oh, Thomas Ronhaar looked for the move in turn number 13 on the back of Freddie Rasmussen. Didn't quite come off this time by, but Thomas Ronhaar with those 2-lap fresh and medium tyres, he's looking to go for the move.
Yeah, he certainly is. Coming down the corner now, we're seeing Ruben Pedreño coming into the pits for his stop, but Ronhaar with the switchback heading through the final corner and over the line now. Danny Berejne picking up the fastest lap of the race. Jarno Opmeer as well on a charge, looking to try and gain closer and closer. Further back though, we do have Rasmussen and Ronhaar coming together, and Ronhaar has taken 13th away on track. Sensational move indeed, and that could make all the difference. P5 in terms of a net showing right now, with Shanaka Clay dead in front of Jarno Opmeer. Otis Lawrence making up that train as well, but Berejne still out in front and comfortable in terms of this net lead situation.
Brilliant race developing so far, and we're only just past the halfway mark of this Grand Prix. Lap 16 of 33. It is shaping up to be a phenomenal round one here in PSGL this evening, and I just can't wait to see how it all ends. We still have to focus on Brendan Lee, Alvaro Carreton, Nicolas Longue, these guys who are going to pit onto that set of the softs to finish off this race. How are they going to compete with the likes of Danny Berejne, Shanaka Clay, Jarno Opmeer, all of these leaders who have been fighting it out with one another, not giving an inch? How are they going to cope? I can't wait to find out.
Yeah, it's also important to note as well, folks, that generally Jarno Opmeer isn't the strongest qualifier, far better as a racer. But here at this stage, being pressurised here by Otis Lawrence, who's going to look for a move here on the Flying Dutchman. Now, these two were together earlier on. Fastest lap here for Thomas Ronhaar. It was briefly Otis Lawrence, but Jarno Opmeer benefiting off the overspeed that he got from Shanaka Clay, and that moves him up into net P2 on track. That was very smart. In comes now Otis Lawrence, immediately trying to follow Jarno through here as they come through towards turn 4. Clay and Lawrence coming together as they make their way towards Tour of Ip. The McLaren squeezing for the room as they head down now towards turn 5. Wheel to wheel they stay. Clay though fighting back as they now peel through up the hill here. Certainly Lawrence trying to be put into his place here by Shanaka Clay. Can Clay hold on? Wheel to wheel they stay. They're not letting anything slide. They'll be wheel to wheel through the entirety of the first 2 sectors here, Dan.
Here comes Thomas Ronhaar looking to go 3 wide potentially. Oh, Shanaka wheel to wheel for almost the whole sector at this point. It looks like Shanaka gonna come out on top. In comes Thomas Ronhaar looking to make the move on the pair of them down the inside in towards turn number 13. Otis Lawrence looking now back up the inside. It's gone wrong for Thomas Ronhaar. Freddie Rasmussen arriving onto the scene as now in towards turn number 15. Phenomenal racing we're seeing at the minute. They're still wheel to wheel. Otis Lawrence now still gonna go up the inside. I think finally has made that move stick on Shanaka Clay, and here comes Freddie Rasmussen.
It's like Noah's Ark. They went in 2 by 2. They were 3 wide though, and now Freddie Rasmussen is looking to topple them all here as they run wheel to wheel. Certainly could not quite get past Lawrence, but he got past Shanaka Clay. Absolutely sensational from Freddie Rasmussen and also Otis Lawrence, but Clay and Ronhaar gave it everything. Rasmussen though, here at this stage, he was literally a mere spectator only moments ago, but now he is up to P12 on track, and now P4 in a net standpoint.
I've got to say, that might be the best lap of racing I have ever witnessed here in PSGL. 5 drivers total scrapping for position. Insane stuff that we have just witnessed here in PSGL. Otis Lawrence and Shanaka Clay wheel to wheel for almost the whole lap at that point, and they did not make contact, I believe, once throughout the entirety of that. The race craft is the highest you will ever see. Freddie Rasmussen and Thomas Ronhaar taking their opportunities. Didn't quite work out for Ronhaar, but Rasmussen now up into a net P4. Insane stuff here.
Yeah, well, the big problem now for Thomas Ronhaar is the fact that Otis Lawrence has lost DRS here on Jarno Opmeer, so it's Berejne and Opmeer who are currently fighting it out for the win. But look at Shanaka Clay now on the tail of Freddie Rasmussen. More cars coming into the pits to serve their stops, but here they come now, closing down on each other. Clay now down the inside of Rasmussen, looking to try and fire back after Rasmussen took him only a lap ago, and Clay has managed to fire back into now the net standing of the top 4, and now back again comes Thomas Ronhaar as these 3 bring a spectacle to PSGL round 1.
Thomas Ronhar up the inside of Freddie Rasmussen now. What a move up the in through Torre Vip. They're going to run wheel to wheel once again into the second sector. I think Freddie Rasmussen's had enough battling for at least a lap or two. He backs out and allows for Thomas Ronhar to go up the inside there. And you know, that move has been made for the Dutchman. But now this has sort of, George, created a bit of a rift in throughout most of the pack. I can see Luke Smith and Istvan Pukki doing battle at the minute. Luke Smith down the inside and gets his way through into P15, but it seems like a bit of a rift has formed between now the top two and the rest of the field, because Jarno Otmir is now a second clear of Otis Lawrence, and I've just noticed at the top of the order the mediums are in.
Yeah, they are, and let me just say, I give credit to Otis. He's managed to pull 2/10 in to close up here on Jarno Otmir, so there is a chance that 2/10 has now been dwarfed, as now Thomas Ronhar goes to the move on Shanaka Clay, and this is going to be so easy heading through towards turn one, because Clay has no slipstream to benefit from here, and Ronhar bursts through into 7th place, and now chasing after Otis Lawrence. Otis, though, losing more time hand over fist now, has lost 2/10 further here away from Jarno Otmir, which really does put these, or certainly this conglomerate of cars, at a standstill. This is allowing Berejne and Otmir to career onwards and upwards.
The battle was beautiful, but now looking at the ERS situations, Danny Berejne has got 76% in the battery, Jarno Otmir 65%, Otis Lawrence 2%. He's sub 10%, which means, of course, the battery deployment is going to be halved. Otis Lawrence really not looking to be in a great position at the moment. Thomas Ronhar has got 40% in the battery as well, and could look to go for the move in towards turn number 1. Really unfortunate that Otis Lawrence, he got caught up in that battle and has unfortunately depleted all of his resources. I wouldn't be surprised as well if those tyres are absolutely screaming at this point. There is a semblance of hope. He's closing in to the DRS range of Jarno Otmir, but he's not going to have it in towards turn number 1. And here comes Ronhar.
Yeah, it certainly is. 3/10 now within, as we now see a battle brewing further up. Jarno Otmir going for the lead here of the race as he surpasses Danny Berejne and now takes helm as the net race leader here at Portimao. Simon Weigang may still be on top, but he's got to come into pit. It's Jarno Otmir now at the head of the field, with Berejne in third. Ronhar now further back, who's managed to get past Otis Lawrence, and he is only 1.1 away from Danny Berejne. This race is not over yet.
Absolutely sensational stuff that we're seeing here. Luke Smith now for P8 in this Grand Prix, going around the outside of Jake Benham, forced wide ever so slightly, and picks up a penalty to bet there as well. Luke Smith will remain up the inside of the Englishman and will make that move stick through turn number 7. And you know, at what cost? He's now got a 3-second time penalty to deal with, which is going to drop him potentially out of the point at this moment in the Grand Prix. So really, was it worth going for that move there, Luke Smith? We'll have to wait and see later on in this Grand Prix. Meanwhile, further back as well, don't forget about Brendan Lee, about Alvaro Caraton and Nicholas Longe as well. 1 lap old, soft tyres, going to have incredible amounts of pace over these worn out mediums. It's just a matter of getting through on all of these drivers and fighting your way to the front.
Yeah, Brendan Lee now in the wheel tracks of Wilson Hughes. Thomas Ronhar has managed to reclaim DRS and is now within 6/10 of Danny Berejne as well. Simon Weigang comes into the pits. Here comes Brendan Lee, 2-time F1 Esports champion. He was the very first to take it back in 2017, and now looking for a very fast second stint on the soft compound of tyres. He moves up to 10th place out of Wilson Hughes and heading through in towards turn 2, in towards turn 3 and out of turn 4. Next on his list is Istvan Pukki, and Lee on the climb.
Brendan Lee already all over the rear of Istvan Pukki, down the inside of the Ferrari driver. Of course, Brendan Lee's former team last season in esports. He's now got his way through on Istvan Pukki. Sensational stuff from him, and it's just about picking them off one at a time, not using these tyres up too much, and he should be able to get his way up into that top 5 and potentially be taking the fight to the 2 Mercedes leaders of Danny Berejne and Jarno Otmir.
Yeah, I can tell you, Brendan Lee now starting to verge up here on Jake Benham. The All-Star is going to have a lot to worry about here, because Lee has been absolutely rapid on this slick, soft tyre as they now head through the final segments of this circuit to end lap 22 and begin lap 23. It is going to be, I'm sure, without any shadow of a doubt, Brendan Lee who's going to make the moves here on Jake Benham. And Polak's his way through the field, but there is a slight gap now between Benham and those further up as well, as we're now seeing Lee surpass the Mercedes, of course, a former Mercedes driver. He won an F1 Esports title as a Mercedes driver. He's now with Alfa Romeo Sauber, and alongside Thomas Ronhaar, they're looking to jettison their way. It's securing the big points for the Sauber team.
Brilliant stuff from Brendan Lee there. Thomas Ronhaar, further up the order, has made that gap. There was about 1.1, 1.2 seconds a few laps ago between Otis Lawrence and Jan Ortmeier. Essentially nothing at this point. Thomas Ronhaar, his pace is undeniable, and with a healthy 40% in the battery, he'll be all over the rear of the Dutchman in the next few laps. We'll see what he can do. Thomas Ronhaar potentially could be the fastest of these medium runners.
Yeah, and he's got reasonable amounts of battery remaining. It's over the 50% mark consumed, but still enough, I think, to obviously cause, well, certainly an imposition to Jarno Opmeer. Brendan Lee has just managed to go ahead of Luke Smith as well. 7th place now for Lee. Only 3 laps accrued on those soft tyres, and he needs to break to within DRS of Freddie Rasmussen in 6 as well. Still, though, Danny Berejné leads whilst he's in a Red Bull. Technically, it's the Mercedes 1-2 here at this stage on lap 23, soon to be lap 24. More cars, though, starting to queue up for a potential attack against the likes of Jarno Opmeer as well as Otis Lawrence, because Shanaka Clay also putting the burners on as they head down now through towards turn 1. Alvaro Caraton starting to lofty himself higher and higher as well on the softs, now ahead of Jake Benham, and that is 2 drivers that have occupied that soft tyre strat in the final stint. They're now both in the top 10, including, remember, of course, Brendan Lee, who made those crucial overtakes earlier on. And look at that, Lee already within DRS on Freddie.
Brendan Lee's in the train, yeah, he's right at the rear of this top 7. What a star-studded grid we have at the minute, fighting for the win. Brendan Lee potentially could win it all if he's able to save these tyres for the next few laps and go for the moves on Freddie Rasmussen and Shanaka Clay when the time is right. And I think the intentions have been made clear from most of the leaders not to fight at this point, because there's a bigger threat in behind. There he is up the inside through turn number 10. Brendan Lee has arrived.
Yeah, Brendan Lee making the crucial moves and already now surpassing a 4-time consecutive F1 Esports runner-up. That, of course, being Freddie Rasmussen, who's now reduced to 7th place. Shanaka Clay in trouble, knows that there is a looming Alfa Romeo Sauber on his tail right now. 2 corners remain here on lap 24. Lap 25 will begin, and Brendan Lee is chopping down the delta, knocking down the cars like timber as they make their way down towards turn 1 again. Lee switching all over the back of Clay as they go wheel to wheel through towards turn 1. Got the move done even before the apex. And Caraton also lurching past Luke Smith. Look out now, Lee is a-coming.
Yeah, Brendan Lee into that top 5 now, fighting for a potential podium on the back of Otis Lawrence, already off the exit of turn number 4. In towards Torrey Vip they go, down the inside, easy as you like from Brendan Lee there. Now he's got his teammate and the 2 Mercedes esports drivers of Jarno Opmeer and Danny Berejné at the minute now, until he leads this Grand Prix on lap number 25 of 33. How high can he climb? How easy will he make these moves, or is the top 3 going to give him grief?
Well, I tell you what, you can look at the driver's pace, you can look at their talents. Obviously, you've got a 2-time F1 Esports champion, and you've got potentially a champion in waiting in Thomas Ronhaar. But also, you've got to look at what's going on behind the scenes, because we all know there's been a lot of work put into the Sauber team in terms of engineering as well. And the likes of Seb Kowalski, who is also a very well-known and reputable engineer, no doubt going to work here for both Ronhaar and Lee, and has played a peripheral role in them securing this very positive position, has certainly handed a very positive sort of level of assistance alongside that of Ronhaar and Lee. And when you combine the two in terms of pace and strategical common sense, it can make all the difference to a driver's race. And now we have got Sauber occupying P3 and 4 on track, with only Danny Berejné and Jarno Opmeer in front of them here. Now, the only one thing that Berejné and Opmeer might have to their credit is the fact that they might have been saving tyres and Ronhaar allowing Lee through. Strategic elements being applied here by the Sauber team, Dan.
And now Brendan Lee is ready to go on the attack of both Jarno Opmeer and Danny Berger. 6 lap pressure, soft tyres strapped onto that Alfa Romeo Sauber. He's still going to have pace, only 6 laps old at this point. They're not really going to be in their worst condition, and already into this roller coaster of a second sector. Brendan Lee to the inside of turn number 10. Very late, very bold move for the 2-time champion on his fellow 2-time esports champion. Is now in towards turn number 13 they go. Thought about going up the inside, but Brendan Lee going to stick behind for the time being. I think the goal of Brendan Lee is to allow for himself and Thomas Ronhaar to get through on Jarno Opmeer at the minute. We'll see what happens as they head in through turn number 15 of Galp. Jarno Opmeer going to have to try and defend, I think, from Brendan Lee. He's got 52% in the battery there. Is he going to close up? I don't think so. I think Brendan Lee happy to sit behind for the time being, but George, the laps are running out here.
Yeah, and I know what Jarno's thinking right now. He has to allow Brendan Lee to start using those tyres because that can make all the difference come the end of the race. He's got 7 laps accrued on him. If you remember the first stint, they started to sort of die off here at this stage. So Lee has got to make the most of them now, and ASAP as he makes his way down towards Tora Vip. A surprise move down the inside, a look down the inside as he looked to spring a trap here on Jarno Opmeer. Both of them 2-time F1 Esports champions. Both of them did it consecutively. Both of them at the top of the record books where it comes to performing at the highest level, and they're now together here at the track, here at PSGL and here at Portimao, and sniffing the rear on that Mercedes is Brendan Lee. He likes moves here at this point on track. He's going to try the outside here as they come through now wheel to wheel, and Brendan Lee on the softs. He had the grip with the soft tyre, he had the pace, he had the momentum. It's Brendan Lee into P2 and chasing former teammate Danny Berger.
Turning back the pages now, it is the current esports Mercedes driver of Danny Berger against his former Mercedes teammate in Brendan Lee, heading in towards turn number 1. Brendan Lee not too close to the rear of Danny at this moment in time. He's going to happily close up to the back, but he's using the battery. He's going to go up the inside in towards turn number 1 for the lead of this race. Brendan Lee moves.
Yeah, it looks like Brendan Lee is certainly back. Lap 28
at the front of the order.
Lap 28 of 33. Brendan Lee leads the way. And for the first time in a long, long time, though, being answered back by Danny Berger, who is certainly not content with remaining in second place. Opmeer now in third. Ronhaar in fourth, as well with Lawrence queued up in behind. This race is far from over. Alvaro Caraton making big moves as well. Stay tuned in, folks. You do not want to miss a thing. Brendan Lee leading the way, but he knows he must try and break Berger before the tyres die off.
Unbelievable stuff that we're seeing. Brendan Lee is not out of the water at the minute. Danny Berger still hot on his heels. Jarno Opmeer following in tandem as well. Thomas Ronhaar giving all hell to Jarno at this point in time, closing to the back of his fellow countryman at this point. We're still, what's it going to be, 5 laps to go this time by, so Brendan Lee's got to do a longer stint on this soft tyre than I think he would have liked, but further back behind, here comes Thomas Ronhaar on the back of Jarno Opmeer. Is he using the end of the battery? Got the DRS wide open in the Alfa Romeo Sauber, but he's going to pull out to the inside to cool the car ever so slightly, making his intentions clear. He doesn't want to go for the move just yet.
Yeah, it's a tale of two Dutchmen in the battle for P3, Opmeer and Ronhaar. The stories that have been told over the last 2 seasons of PSGL, with these two at the very forefront of matters as well, as we now see them make their way down through towards Tora Vip. Lee leading the way with Berger waiting in the wings in second place. Lee doing everything he can to maintain these pace levels. Otis Lawrence, he is not out of the equation either. Remember, starting on pole, but down to 5th. Brendan Lee started 7th, but he's up to 1st. The strategy for now working for the 2-time F1 Esports champion, with Danny Berger, remember, former teammate to Brendan Lee, in second and asking the major questions, knocking at that door. Thomas Ronhaar going for a very similar Brendan Lee style move, heading through towards Portimao, and is now going to make his way out of turn 10 through turn 11, turn 12. Again though, Jarno Opmeer with the defensive walls up. The Minister of Defence is at it again, and Opmeer, the also 2-time F1 Esports champion, doing enough to thwart Thomas Ronhaar.
Yeah, sensational stuff from Opmeer here, but now he's lost a lot of time to his teammate. He's in dire straits as Thomas Ronhaar pulls to the inside already, heading down in towards turn number 1. Jan Ortmir has got a bit more battery than his fellow countryman, so he's going to be able to defend in towards turn number 1, but Thomas Ronhaar still sitting in behind at this point and still hounding the rear of Jan Ortmir.
Yeah, they have been drawing swords together now for quite some time, and now we have got a blockbuster finish to this race at Portimao. Brendan Lee still marshalling a reasonable gap, 0.5 of a second near of the realm as Ronhaar once again asked the major questions. Oh my goodness me! Oh, they came together. Ronhaar very lucky to hold on to the car. I tell you what, I'm not sure quite what happened there, but Ronhaar making contact with Jarno Opmeer. Where have we seen that before, Dan?
It's a Dutch civil war that we're witnessing in real time at the minute. Thomas Ronhaar looked to potentially got the inside into that corner, then decided to stick around the outside and then turned in, I think, a little bit too sharp on Jarno Opmeer. Made a little bit of contact. He's been able to keep that position and still keep up with the Mercedes driver, but Thomas Ronhaar maybe getting a little bit impatient to go for that move. Jarno Opmeer is doing a superb job of defending his podium position, and in the next few laps, whilst Brendan Lee's tyres are beginning to fall off a cliff, those two Mercedes esports drivers, the Red Bull of Berejnay, the Mercedes of Jarno, they'll try and go on the attack.
Well, I can tell you, Jarno's playing a very patient game here. He's allowing Berejnay to do all the donkey work in terms of trying to stay on tail of Brendan Lee, but knows he can, you know, use this time to try and conserve tyres at this stage, try and go the distance. Bear in mind, they've got 17 laps accrued on these mediums. They're going to be feeling the pinch as much as Brendan Lee will be on his softs. So this is a very level playing field we have here on lap 31 of 33. Whilst obviously we have 2.5 or so laps to go, look at Ronhaar's tyres in comparison to Otis Lawrence. We're pretty much on trend right now. 17 laps across the board. Every driver in that top 5 on medium tyres are going to be feeling the same effects. And with Jarno currently occupying third, it's now a stamina test at this stage. Who is better in the corners? And I would argue, if you looked at Ronhaar's strategy, if you looked at his actual setup, especially when he headed down the straight, he was sacrificing oodles of straight line speed in comparison to Opmeer.
Yeah, absolutely, and just having a little think of the ERS situations, George, of course, Brendan with only 40%, Danny has a full battery in the back of his car and will be all over the rear in the next few laps with 2 to go this time by. Danny Berejnay has all the resources available to him, and he's going to try and deploy some now to close to the back of Brendan Lee. This battle is far from over. Danny Berejnay could potentially be winning this race, but Brendan Lee is going to do it all in his power to defend this win.
He certainly will. Lap 32 of 33, penultimate lap of the race. Brendan Lee takes them round in front with Berejnay in second. Opmeer has done certainly a sterling job to keep Ronhaar in behind. For how much longer, though, can he continue this certainly groundbreaking assault here between he and Opmeer? Well, between he and Ronhaar. Opmeer doing, though, enough to maintain that P3 place. Otis Lawrence in P5. Watching all this unfold, I get the feeling that perhaps this is all that Lawrence can give right now. And whilst all the fighting is happening further up, it certainly does not invite Lawrence here for a potential assault. As they come through now, the second half of the lap, Brendan Lee still holding his own here. Ronhaar again a little better, heading out of Samsung and finding a little bit more as well. And obviously, if he wants to try and land a heavy blow here to potentially the race lead, he needs to try and get past Jarno Opmeer. But at this point, Opmeer doing enough to maintain the pace levels against Ronhaar.
Is it going to be enough for Jan Ortmir and Thomas Ronhaar to take the fight to Brendan Lee and Danny Berejnay for the final time in this race? They're going to head on towards lap number 33 of 33 for this show-stopper finish. Here comes Danny Berejnay on the back of Brendan Lee. This is when you got to dump the battery, use your DRS, go for the moves. He can see Brendan Lee is flashing with the ERS. Here comes Berejnay to the outside line of turn number 1. No defense possible for Brendan Lee there, and Danny Berejnay is back into the lead.
He certainly is, though, but if you think Brendan Lee's going to take that line down, he certainly isn't. Fabrizio Donoso has retired from the race. Berejnay now may have taken the lead here in this instance, but Tora Vip may present a different question here. Lee then threatening a little bit of hesitation on the front of the Sauber driver as Opmeer still retains P3. It's kicking off. Otis Lawrence had a chance heading down through towards turn 1, but Berejnay still in control.
And Brendan Lee has pulled this strategy off to such a strong degree, making up 5 places in this Grand Prix to only come off second best. It's a disappointing way to end, but I think all the opportunities have gone awry for him. Danny Berejnay now coming in towards Sector 3 for the final time, just has to navigate 3 more corners until he wins this race.
He certainly does. He's been absolutely stellar on his PSGL return. We said last season about his regularity in the top 10 and how well he performed in the Haas alongside Alfie Butcher, but now he is in a Red Bull. Certainly controversial is what we all thought, but Danny Berejnay, roll back the years, a vintage display. It will be Berejnay brilliance here at Portimao. He wins here in PSGL round 1. Brendan Lee also rolling back the years. What a 1-2 that really is, with Jarno Opmeer making up 2-2-time F1 Esports champions, occupying podiums, with Ron Haar in 4th. A grandiose day for Alfa Romeo, who occupy 2nd and 4th, 2 cars in the top 5. No other constructor has done that, certainly in this race. Otis Lawrence take a bow. Despite starting pole and losing out, he still retained P5. And not a bad day for Williams either, Danfield. 6th and 7th for Alvaro Carreton, and a welcome return for Shanaka Clay.
Absolutely, of course, Shanaka Clay. It's great to see him back in that Williams. But wow, what a race we have just witnessed there. 3 Mercedes legends making up the podium. Of course, Brendan Lee winning 2 titles with that team in 2017 and 18. Jarno Opmeer has been the face of that organisation for what feels like, I think, the last 3 seasons at this point. And of course, Danny Berejnay, formerly racing with Brendan Lee, now racing with Jarno Opmeer, makes up that bridge. And wow, what a race we have just witnessed there. Danny Berejnay taking the win here this evening. Sensational is all I have to say.
Outrageous. What a performance. What a race. I tell you what, how about that for round 1, folks? Absolutely outrageous. 3 legends of the sport. And it was Danny Berejnay this time. I tell you what, don't count him out. Could we be seeing Berejnay back to his brilliant best? We saw flickers of it last season in PSGL, where he was driving the Haas. He is now back on top this time. A victory in race 1 for Berejnay. A perfect race of sorts. He managed his opening stint brilliantly. The pit stop phase came round. He brought it home. He managed his pace. He stayed behind Brendan Lee till the very last moments and then pulled the plug on a potential Brendan Lee assault. But look at that. The top 3 vastly well decorated in terms of F1 esports. And what a stellar display. Let's take you through the results. Danny Berejnay, your race winner. Brendan Lee in 2nd. Jarno Opmeer 3rd. Thomas Ron Haar in 4th. Otis Lawrence in 5th. Alvaro Carreton 6th with Shanaka Clay in 7th. Grandiose return for Shanaka Clay after his difficult times of late. Freddie Rasmussen in 8th with Jake Benham in 9th. Ulas Yildirim in 10th. Luke Smith in 11th. Ruben Pedreño in 12th. Yoni Tormler 13th. Wilson Hughes 14th. Simon Weigang 15th. Nicholas Longe 16th. Alfie Butcher in 17th. Jade Norgrove 18th, Istvan Pukki in 19th. Of course, we saw Donoso retire on the final lap of the race. Well, folks, are you gobsmacked? Because I am gobsmacked. What a race to kick things off here at PSGL. I'm mind blown, Danfield. God, how do we digest that one? Outrageous. Don't forget to vote for your driver of the day, chat. We've got a poll currently in the chat. We've got well over 600 votes, so make sure you cast yours now. Dan, summarise that one for me, please.
It's pretty hard to summarise that race. I think there's just got to be one word for it, and that's wow. 3 letters is all you need to describe what we've just witnessed there. A brilliant start to the season. For some reason, my camera keeps bugging out here. I mean, it's looking like it's a somber occasion when it goes black and white, but
it's definitely not somber.
Beaming.
Definitely not somber,
no,
by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, talk about a finale. I mean, I half expected Ron Haar to come into the fight. What a drive from Brendan Lee. I think whilst, of course, he had the best tyres of the bunch in that final stint, you've still got to get the moves done where necessary. I mean, it's building up to be one of the tightest competitive frays I think we've ever seen in the history of F1 sim racing, F1 esports in totality. I don't think I've ever seen a finish quite like that before.
Absolutely. I haven't witnessed a race quite like that. And to open up the season with this mystery circuit where none of these drivers had any opportunity to prepare. It was a completely level playing field coming into this Grand Prix, and they have just whipped out one of the most sensational, sublime, I'm running out of superlatives here because it was just an incredible Grand Prix from start to finish, and we've got a whole season of action like this.
We do, and I'm pleased to say that we do have drivers joining us in the commentary box. We're going to kick things off with Brendan Lee. Brendan, what a performance from yourself. We were just bigging up that final stint on the soft tyres. There's been a lot of movement going on at Sauber lately. Of course, Alfa Romeo as they were prior known. And I know that you guys have got some grand experts behind the scenes that are working hard to help the team push forward. I know yourself, you seemingly look back to your very, very best. This is vintage Brendan Lee. Am I not talking right here?
Thank you very much. And yeah, credit also goes to the team. We're doing a lot of work behind the scenes today. As you alluded to, is a level playing field for everyone, all thrown in the pool and told to swim effectively. And we pulled off a great strategy, great teamwork, great execution in qualifying as well. So full credit to the team. And this one was very, very, very extremely satisfying. After the event one, we had a lot of technical gremlins that basically allowed us not to show the pace that we had in the Bahrain race. And this was a demonstration of what we can actually do, and for me it's a very satisfying race.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? I mean, obviously the concept leading into this race is vastly different to what we've had in PSGL top flight competition in the past. The track only getting revealed 10 minutes before we start. Essentially, we had it right at the very last minute prior to us even entering, qualifying. So it was very much a mystery for the drivers. Do you take some semblance of comfort knowing that even in these, tricky scenarios that you're still able to get the best results?
100%. I was actually thinking on lap 31 that maybe esports should be this way.
Yeah, well, maybe. I think it's brilliant. Personally, I think obviously that little bit of mystery, it doesn't allow the drivers to sweat that much. I said to Dan prior to us going into qualifying that it builds up. It talks more about, or should we say, amplifies that natural pace.
Pardon? Sorry, I missed that question.
Well, I was saying to Dan prior to us jumping into qualifying that it kind of the kind of format sort of displays the more natural pace of the drivers.
Yeah, natural pace, but also natural adaptation, what's going on. And the driver who's thinking on their feet during the race is a really critical element. Like trying out different brake bias. For the car to be fast or not. And then putting all that information together for the laps that are critical with the clean air. So it forces a lot more thinking and a lot more adaptation on the fly rather than executing the perfect practice race in the event, let's say. So for me, I am a fan of this. Adds a lot of tension, that's for sure, in the first lap of qualifying, but it's a nice change from I've been doing this competitive stuff since 2014, and that's grind every week, practice, and try to execute your best practice lap in the qualifying session, whereas this is just adaptation and driver skill coming out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure to watch. I want to ask you as well, because it was a big day for Danny Berridge. Now, you two, of course, were sparring partners in the past. You were sparring partners again this time at Portimao. Different teams nowadays, but obviously for him to be back to seemingly his best as well. Do you think that this game kind of favours you guys you're the former champions from 2017-18, former race winners, etc.?
Your microphone actually cut out halfway through that question.
I think Discord's having.
I
think Discord's having some problems. I think, but yeah, I mean, let's. I just wanted to allude to the game and about how it's changed. Obviously, the handling model seemingly. I think we've spoken about this before about how it seemingly looks like it favours those drivers from back in the 2017-18-19 era.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the game changes every year, but being battling with Danny, especially on the last lap, sort of going side by side with him, was a sort of a flashback to the past. And I love Danny. He's one of the nicest blokes in esports, probably in life as well. One of the funniest people I know, and I'm honoured to even just know him, let alone race alongside him. And yeah, I think of course the game ebbs and flows from year to year, but it's nice to see Danny back, in my opinion, where he deserves to be at the front, picking up some trophies and points.
Yeah, and you never know, maybe a long-awaited first championship as well. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But hey,
I would prefer that first. To be honest. Like,
I'm sure you would. Well, listen, you and Jarno are sparring over who's going to become a 3-time F1 Esports champion, because you're currently leveled, aren't you? 2 championships apiece.
yeah, I mean that's a really nice thought, to be honest. And we had a really nice battle with Jarno on the track. So yeah, that's a nice thought, and I'm sure we'll do our best.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to seeing it. Brendan, congratulations on a fantastic P2, and could have been P1 oh so easily, but I'm already gagging for round 2 already.
Oh, thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Catch up.
Thank you, Brendan.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Brendan Lee, everybody. We do apologise, by the way, folks. It looks like we are having some issues with Discord right now. But nonetheless, we do have Otis Lawrence with us here at this point. Otis, you yourself, mate, congratulations on a stellar pole position. The race just did not quite pan out. Obviously, there was a lot of fraught action. There was a huge battle with yourself, Freddie involved as well. I think Shanaka Clay was thrown in there as well somewhere. But you must take some positives, seeing as you seem to be right on pace, natural pace, with some of the best drivers in the game.
Thank you, George. Yeah, the quality pace was pretty good. Obviously, everyone had to just jump in the track last minute and just drive, which is I honestly like the idea quite a lot, because it's more natural ability at that point. Because you obviously just got to get in there and just bend it, no hesitation. And yeah, the quali lap was good in the wet conditions. Also, wet conditions spice it up as well at Portimao, and we haven't drove Portimao for quite a while, so yeah, it's very, very spicy. The race definitely went not as planned. Obviously, you saw where Danny was. We had the same strategy as well, so yeah, not everything fell on my place with the pits, because obviously I lost 2 positions on the in lap on the softs, which I feel like I could have, maybe got better get better race finish if it went for that. But yeah, good pace at the end of the day. I'm very happy with the pace, and yeah, we can try and move it on for the next round.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there must be a great deal of excitement around where you're going at the moment, with obviously you being part of McLaren Shadow. Has there been many discussions revolving around potential future placement in F1 Esports when you are eligible?
I'll keep that secret. Yeah,
that's a yes, ladies and gentlemen, by the way. Care to elaborate, Otis?
I won't comment on it.
Well, listen, hey, yeah, I'll give you a little bit of respite. It was a stellar performance, a great start though. Whilst obviously it could have been better in terms of race trim, you obviously see that there is potential positives, certainly with Berejnay succeeding on the same strategy. Looking ahead, we've obviously got many rounds to come. Still solid points accrued. You finished ahead of your teammate, which is obviously very important. What is the expectations? What is the plan? What is the mission going through this championship?
Obviously I'm going to try to do the best I can. Just trying to do the best results I can. Obviously, it's going to be a hard championship to win. Obviously, the best drivers on the game in this championship. So, yeah, I'm trying to do my best, the best I can. Because obviously it's going to be very hard. But yeah, the overall goal is to win it. But it's going to be very hard. I don't have any doubts that I'm not. But yeah, just try my best.
Well, I tell you what, we're here for it, Otis, and I got to say, you have every possible, possibility against these talents, and certainly based off today, only positives you can take from that. So, congratulations on a grandiose pole position and some solid points.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone enjoyed the stream.
Oh, they certainly did. They certainly did. We did too. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Otis Lawrence, everybody. Congratulations, Otis.
Thank you. Have a good one, everyone.
And you, all the best. He's not alone, though. Danny Berejnay joins us, race winner in PSGL Season 35 of 36. Danny, that was satisfying to watch. Qualifying was brilliant. Front row, you qualified as well. And you're a race winner in round 1 of all times.
Yeah. I am pretty happy, guys. I am not gonna lie.
Are you sure? Are you happy?
So I didn't know how to treat this format with not knowing the track. I wanted to practice, but then I got a little bit lazy during the day, and I was not really feeling confident and prepared. And I'm really happy that the qualifying laps that mattered needed to be done in the rain, because I think I was more comfortable on those conditions. My lap for P2 was not even great. I had too much fuel, but then the rain just got worse and timing was bad, and I lost like 3/10 on one corner, so I was very surprised. Other part of the lap was kind of cool. So front row in Portugal know that ERS management and overtaking is difficult. So I just tried my best to save as much as I can, be P2 or P1 the whole race, and I managed to do that.
Yeah,
I chose the most conservative strategy, and then had more ERS at the end and won.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, I was about to say it was a very well managed race on your part, and given all your experience that you've had, not only in F1 esports but league racing as a whole, because you've been on the scene for years, and obviously you know the game better than anybody. I mean, is that the experience coming into this? Being patient, waiting for the right moment.
I don't think I cooked up like a special strategy. Many of the drivers have these skill sets as I do, of being patient, but I was in the lucky position that Jarno was behind on me, and he had great top speed to defend, but never really followed me as close to feel uncomfortable. So it was amazing teamwork by him as well to keep all those guys behind. So I just have to thank him as well, big time. Jarno did an amazing job. And just by the pace of his setup for this track that we didn't know beforehand, it's an amazing performance that he also finished on the podium, because he didn't have as calm of a race as I did.
No.
And absolutely perfected it, and we tried to help each other in the moments when we needed to, especially just one lap before pitting, both of us overtaking Otis. I think that was a key moment for both of our races.
Yeah, and obviously, you being back at Mercedes now, of course you were, alongside Brendan Lee when he first won at Mercedes as well in 2018, and then of course Jarno when he won at Sauber. So you've been alongside two champions at the very least. You yourself being back in the Mercedes fold, what's that like? What's it like moving away from Mercedes then coming back? Does it feel like it was before, or is it better? Talk us through it.
Every team, I think, tries to improve every year, but what I felt in 2018, that Mercedes always tries to be ahead of time by a couple of years compared to others, I think it's still true, and I'm very happy that in esports, Mercedes is the most successful team as a constructor, tied with Red Bull, I think, 2 world titles, but Jarno won more driver's title, and Brandon as well as individual. So I think we can call Mercedes one of the, if not the most successful F1 esports team. And our staff is just full of professionals, and for them to trust me, it's first of all a huge privilege. And on the other hand, it's just very nice to be at the place where I'm challenged the most and I can work on myself the most, because I think to beat that many other players in nearly identical opportunities with equal cars and setups that make very small difference year after year, you don't, it's not about luck, it's not only about talent, but you just need to perform well in life holistically. If you get a little bit burnt out, get sick too many times, get too many distractions outside, then you are out of the field in 1 second, because the whole field is separated by like 1.5 tenths of a second. And even though this was a random track today, it was still a very tight qualifying session, so difficult changing conditions, especially Q2 was extremely tight. So I think this shows how competitive esports got, and I'm starting to turn one of the oldest drivers in the field.
You don't look it, Danny.
I work really hard to keep up with them, but I'm really passionate about what I'm doing, so I just try to keep this rolling for as many years as I can.
Well, I'm sure you will. I've got to say, back to your best. I would say it right now, but I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in round 2. Congratulations on winning round 1 here at Portimao. And we'll see you next time as well for another race.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Danny. Danny Berejnay, everybody, joining us in the commentary box. And Dan, he sounds someone who's very composed, someone obviously utilising his experience the right way. He's not getting too riled up at this very early stage of the championship. You can kind of tell that obviously he's taking it in his stride. This looks like a very, should we say, confident, assured Danfield at this point. Assured Danny Berejnay at this stage.
I'm feeling very confident. Thank you for.
I got my Danny's mixed up.
Danny, it's very similar.
It is.
I don't blame you there, but yeah, I mean, Danny Berejnay, what a guy. He just seems so genuine as well. When we're talking to him, when we're listening to him, he just seems so grateful for what he's able to, be able to do at this point, and the people that he works with, how he speaks so highly of Jarno and saying, he didn't have an easy race, and he's commending on how he just worked, and he's so down to earth, and that's really what I do love about Danny Berejnay. And having this revitalization is something I think no one is going to be against whatsoever, and I would love it if this form kept up. We could see him potentially fighting for that PSGL title. And of course, George, you know what happens to PSGL champions here in when it comes to the F1 esports scene.
Yeah, you never know. You might take his first crown. Like I said, he's been the bridesmaid as well in his own right, alongside 2 former champions. Of course, both of them featuring on the podium as well, Brendan Lee and Jarno Opmeer. But nevertheless, folks, what a tremendous race to watch. I hope you all enjoyed that one, and we satisfied the itch of F1 esports here at PSGL once again. It's something that we love to bring you, and it's a pleasure to be part of as well, and it's a pleasure to be live for you guys, as well as we will be every Wednesday here at 7 o'clock. So make sure, if you haven't done so already, that you leave a like and also leave a subscribe to the PSGL YouTube channel. And also don't forget as well to check it out on social media, Twitter as well as Instagram. It does have a TikTok as well at PremierSimGL. If you want to check me out as well, you can at George Morgan TV on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, you name it. It's everywhere, the same at tag. And Dan, do you want to share your socials as well, if you please?
It's just Twitter for me, Danfield F1_. That's where you can find me, and I'm closing in on 1,300 followers. It'd be much appreciated if you could head over there, maybe doing me a little bit of a favour. But yeah, what a race we've seen today, George, and I cannot wait for the rest of this season to unfold.
Yeah, no, it's going to be stellar. I can't wait either, folks. But today it was the turn of Danny Berejnay. He beat his 2 former teammates. One of them is current, though, at this stage at Mercedes. 2 former champions, 2-time champions. Jarno also being a 4-time PSGL PC champion, returning to the podium spots yet again. Will we see the tide turn, though, when we head to round 2 next time around? We'll have to wait and see. Catch us back next week, folks, on Wednesday at 7 o'clock as we go racing here in PSGL PC F1. See you then. Take care. Goodbye.
He's got the inside off, here is through on the left hand side, hooks the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Opmeer now to the last couple of corners now, his finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium once again. The GOAT is back. Jarno Opmeer wins the US Grand Prix in a stunning Grand Prix.